12 weeks, contrary to what the packet says.
Feels really good. Like, okay, we've done a massive amount of work, you know?
Must be so soon.
Bonita, is this your pen?
You could keep it.
Oh.
I left it for
Is it a good one?
Yes, that's one like. No, do you need a pen? Pen was going in and out, so that's why maybe I'll just hold on to it.
Recording in progress.
I hereby call this meeting of the Greenbelt City Council to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Good evening. Ms. Niesel?
Here.
Ms. McKinney?
Here.
Ms. Pompey?
Here.
Ms. Pope?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Ms. Weaver?
Here.
Mayor Jordan?
Okay, thank you. Please join us in a moment of silent reflection. We usually pause to remember residents and former residents that have passed away, but I've been informed we don't actually have any this week. But there are so many things going on in the world. Let's just pause for a moment of silent reflection, thinking about our brothers and sisters throughout the world. Just join me. Thank you very much. Councilmember McKinney, will you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, Mr. Roberts, do you want to read the community pledge?
When your actions start being
Oh, Mr.
compatible
Roberts,
with your,
oh,
when
come
your
on.
words are
Okay, I'll go
when
ahead.
your
Would you go
words
ahead,
add up
Ms.
to your
Pompey.
actions, then I'll do it.
The strength of Greenbelt
Yeah.
is diverse people living together in a spirit of cooperation. We celebrate all people by sharing together, all are enriched. We strive to be a respectful, welcoming community that is open, accessible, safe, and fair.
Thank you very much. So we do hold these council meetings 2 times a month, except for August and the end of July. On Mondays, to set policy and make formal actions. Our meetings are always open to the public, except for executive sessions as authorized by state law, so that residents and others can observe council's deliberations during these sessions. We strive to provide reasonable opportunities for the public to voice opinions on matters being considered, and we'll pause periodically for public comment. If you're in the room, when we pause, if you raise your hand after being recognized, just go over to the podium. You'll need to state your name and where you live in Greenbelt, more or less. If you are watching on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to submit a written question or comment, or you can raise your virtual hand. Once again, after being recognized, you'll need to state a name and where you live, more or less. We don't accept anonymous comments from social media. And finally, if you are watching on cable TV, or if you are watching a live stream, you can send us an email. The email address is questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So with public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes during the meeting, and speak on one topic related to the question under consideration. We ask that you avoid questioning the motives of others, and in general, be civil in your remarks. So that's an opening statement, but the first item on the agenda is in fact petitions and requests. It's an opportunity to ask, state something for the record, to inquire from the administration. And for this section, you actually have 5 minutes to speak. So petitions received at the meeting are not acted upon by council at the moment at the meeting, but they are recorded by the city clerk, and they are researched by our staff to find our best response. Sometimes we can respond, other times there's just nothing that we can do. So at this time, let me open up the floor. Are there any petitions or requests? Seeing none, is there anybody online by any chance?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay. Well, this is a jam-packed meeting. We're going to be working with the budget, hopefully approving the budget tonight. And we've got several other important items. But I do have a couple of proclamations to share. And the first is for Pride Month. So I have a proclamation, and if there's anyone in the room that would like to come up and receive it, please do. Welcome. So, whereas the Greenbelt Community Pledge states the strength of Greenbelt is diverse people living together in a spirit of cooperation, and whereas the city strives to be a safe place that does not tolerate violence, harassment, or hate speech, and whereas the diverse lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and LGBTQIA+ community continues to contribute to the widespread academic, economic, artistic, and social spheres within and around our greater community. And whereas Greenbelt has a diverse LGBTQIA+ community that includes people of all ethnicities, religions, and professions. And whereas the patrons and supporters of the Stonewall Inn protest in New York City resisted harassment that had become all too common for members of the LGBTQIA+ community. And whereas out of this resistance, the LGBTQIA+ rights movement in America was born. And whereas Councilmember Rick Gordon affectionately named the city of Greenbelt as the Emerald City, and during his first term as a city council member had advocated for the first raising of the pride flag at the municipal building. And whereas the people of Maryland did approve a measure to legalize same-sex marriage on November 6, 2012. Now, therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and city council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim June 25th to be Emerald City Pride Month in the city of Greenbelt, an acknowledgement that reaffirms the gesture from city council, a city that many LGBTQIA+ residents know and love. I'd like to present this to you. Shamar, council, would you like to stand? Mr. Higgs, so most of our festivities for this month, well, the big day initially is the flag raising at 3 p.m. Yeah, over at the community center, and I'm wondering if you like, you can say a couple of words about this and other activities.
All right, hello. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Shamar Higgs, and I am really excited. This Pride this year, our city is too cool to have just like one weekend. So we have from June, now until August, we're going to be celebrating what we call the Summer of Love or Summer of Pride. And so the schedule is on our website, freeartforall.org, or you can just go online and Google search. But the big parade and festival will be on July 19th. So we wanted to make sure that we had a really great weekend. So we have family game night on the 18th at the mall at the Space. The Saturday we're going to have a parade and festival, and then that Sunday we're going to have our community potluck and drum circle. We're going to even have like a cleansing, like community cleansing ceremony, because a lot has been happening over at Shram Hill Lake. So we want to cleanse the place and share some love that day. So I look forward to it. Like I said, the whole schedule is available online. Always looking for sponsors. Always, if you want to vend or just share more information about your organization, find us online.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yep.
I think one of the reasons, Summer of Love and whatnot, but there's a huge festival. The World Pride Festival is going on in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Over the next month, and I think big parade is on Saturday.
I have stayed away from everything with that, actually, so I have no idea. This has been enough.
Yeah, so thank you so much for accepting the proclamation. Hopefully we'll see you on, I hope everybody just comes down to join us at Friday at
For
3
the flag
p.m.
raising, we will definitely be there.
It's
Yeah.
going to be a celebration.
Thank
Thank you.
I think technically we haven't approved the agenda yet.
Oh, no.
You're right.
So I would like to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So, second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's going to lead us to the consent agenda. Any modifications to the consent agenda? Well, we just voted on the regular agenda.
No, we voted on the consent
Oh, I'm
agenda.
sorry, I'm
Oh,
sorry, sorry.
dear.
Okay, so on the regular agenda, are there any amendments or additions to the regular agenda? And hearing none, could I please have a motion? Yes,
Ms. Pompey, did you want to add that item?
I'll wait until the next meeting. This agenda's already pretty full. Yeah.
thank you, thank you. So there was a second?
Second. I think
Now
I did,
there's-
right? Did I do it? I can't remember.
Okay,
Well, now there's definitely a
now-
second and a few.
we'll put you down if you like. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the agenda and the consent agenda, so we're rolling. Next up, there is one more proclamation. The National League of Cities has declared June as Small Cities Month. Councilmember Silky Pope, a member of the Small Cities Steering, chair of the Small Cities Steering Committee, is going to accept the proclamation. Many of us participate in this council with the National League of Cities. So, would you like to stand, Ms. Pope? Whereas the National League of Cities President and National League of Cities Small City Staff Council have declared June as Small City Month, and whereas small cities and towns under 50,000 population are the hometown to millions of Americans and constitute the vast majority of municipalities across the United States, and whereas small cities and towns strive to strengthen their communities through the provision of services and programs to improve the quality of life for all citizens, and whereas the federal government and state government are essential partners in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to support programs and legislation that strengthen small communities, and whereas organizations, businesses, and citizens are also partnering in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to grow their efforts to make small communities a viable choice for people to live, and whereas during these challenging economic times, the need for a renewed intergovernmental partnership to support essential public services is more important than ever to ensure the safety and growth of small town America. And whereas Councilmember Silky I. Pope is a current member of the NLC Small Cities Council, now, therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim June to be Small Cities Month in Greenbelt and encourage all of our legislators, organizations, businesses, and residents to recognize this event and to work together throughout the year to invest in small cities and towns to better the lives of all residents. Councilmember Pope, there you go. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Pope, so Greenbelt, we're at about 26,000 now. So are we a small city?
We are indeed a small city. Maybe not an MML, not Maryland Municipal League, but for National League of Cities, we definitely are. Any city under 50,000 is considered a small city for this group. And I want to point out that about 80-some% of the United States are small cities. So many more small cities than larger cities. So this is a very important committee. I was chair some years ago. Great ideas come out of this committee, and we're always sharing and to make our cities better and greater, and sharing ideas and solutions to problems that we all face. So yeah, looking forward. I know summer meetings coming up, and of course in November is big, always the National League of Cities conference, and I urge my colleagues too, please stop by and listen in to what we all have to share.
Hey, thank you so much. We talk about going to National League of Cities activities and the conferences and workshops. Personally, I found them very, very valuable, but people have this idea the National League of Cities is only these really, really big cities, but that's not the case. 85% of the members are cities 50,000 and below. So just sharing information from other members, of the other coast, it's amazing how we deal with a lot of the same challenges and, different approaches. And the only way you'd know is by talking to people, other council members from across the country. So
And it's very interesting, when you go across the country, I mean, at times when we had our summer meetings, whoever was the chair, that's where we had our summer meetings. So you really travel to many small cities and many smaller than our own right now. I mean, you have cities with 5,000 people, 10,000 people. So it was very interesting what issues they're facing, what problems they're having, and comparing and sharing. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to be attending those meetings, because it definitely taught me a lot, and sometimes very humbling.
yeah, thank you so much. The next meeting that's coming up is the summer, quote-unquote, leadership meeting. And, all of council is more than welcome to attend. It's a smaller group, so they really shape the agenda of the national organization in the summer council meetings. So please, if you're available, please sign up and attend. So that's going to take us to number 8 on the agenda. And we've got a couple of statements for the record.
In accordance with the General Provisions Article, Section 3-306C2 of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland, I move that the minutes of tonight's meeting reflect that the council met in closed session on Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 at 9:10 p.m. in the Municipal Building Library. The council held this closed meeting in accordance with Section 3-305B1 and 8 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland. 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. And 2, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The purpose of this meeting was 1, to address personnel matters over which this public body has jurisdiction, and 2, to consult with staff, consultants, or individuals about pending or potential litigation. Voting to close the session, Ms. Niesel, yes. Ms. McKinney, yes. Ms. Pompey, no. Ms. Pope, yes. Mr. Roberts, no. Ms. Weaver, yes. Mayor Jordan, yes. Other staff present was Josue Salmaron, city manager, and no others. And we took no actions during that meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Niesel,
Yes.
Ms. McKinney,
Yes.
Ms. Pompey,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts, Ms. Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
In accordance with the General Provisions Article, Section 3-306C2 of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland, I move that the minutes of tonight's meeting reflect that the council met in closed session on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 at 9:13 p.m. in the council chambers. Council held this closed meeting in accordance with Section 3-305B7 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland. 1, to consult with council to obtain legal advice on a legal matter. The purpose of this meeting was to obtain legal advice on an annexation matter. Voting to close the session, Ms. Niesel, yes. Ms. McKinney, yes. Ms. Pompey, yes. Ms. Pope, yes. Mr. Roberts, no. Ms. Weaver, yes. Mayor Jordan, yes. Staff members present, Josue Salmaron, city manager, Terry Ruby, planning director, and Todd Pound, city solicitor, virtually. No other individuals. The action taken was gave staff direction to gather further information about annexation opportunities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Pompey has seconded. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Niesel,
Yes.
Ms. McKinney,
Yes.
Ms. Pompey,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts, Ms. Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Hey, can we turn the fan on a little bit? Maybe it's just me. I'm warm.
Opposite what we normally say.
Depends on what side of the
I
dais
actually
you're
took
on.
my jacket off instead of
This side of
on.
the dais is warm.
So
and that
just
side of
a
the dais is
little
cold.
bit.
Okay. Hey, that's going to take us to the next section of the agenda. And that's legislation,
Administrative reports.
administrative reports. Mr. Summerone.
I'll take that as a sign. I'll be quick. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. Good evening, citizens. Mr. Mayor, it was a short week, but quite the eventful week. We started the week with the Memorial Day activities. We supported that. Functions well attended. Public Works did a good job, and Park Rangers and assisting with the event. A quick couple of reminders. We have an upcoming Coffee with a Cop on the 9th at Target. We have open enrollment for staff and health fair starting tomorrow. Council is welcome to participate on that. There might be some slots open for the complimentary massages. The T-Mobile transition is going well. The last group to be transitioned over cell phones is council. So that's working well. So I hope that you all appreciate the new phones. This is not going to cost the city any additional money. On the contrary, it allows us to upgrade technology and yield savings on an annual basis. So we're looking at over $3,000 in savings for same phone lines. Just a better deal overall. The legislative action requests were submitted to MML. Council was copied on that submission, so we expect positive feedback from the team. We are diligently working on the website transition. We have a continual training of staff, so we're mostly caught up with the training as we transition to a new website. What's different this time around from a previous transition is we want as many people trained on the website, utilization of the website, the features, and add text content to the website so that we decentralize the upkeep of the website. And by decentralizing, we hope that we have more in-depth information on city services and activities. Last year there was interest in the AI camps at Spring Hill Lake Recreation, so the team's working to get that coordinated and scheduled for the upcoming summer season. So we're excited to offer that again this year. And we're busy as always. Camps are moving along well. Many of our camps are already oversubscribed. So we're about 80% of the subscription, and Greg Varda is here and can get a little deeper into that if council so wishes. And now I'll take questions that you may have.
Well, I do have one. I was looking at the calendar. We were talking about this earlier today. I believe on Thursday over at the Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center, there's a kickoff the summer program planned. And I was just wondering, so is that going to supplant the activity that we usually have over there on a weekend?
Mr. Varda's coming up and can get into the details.
Yes, Mayor. See, if you remember, we had the opening of the playground back in the fall, so we had little money left over. So we're having the summer kickoff meeting for the party for the after-school kids on, I believe it's on a Tuesday, right after school, Tuesday evening. So we'll get that information out to you, though.
Any other questions?
And I'm sorry if I missed it when you were talking about the website training, because I noticed those trainings in the agenda packet. Do we have a time when the website will go, when we expect it to go, the new one to go live?
We shifted strategies. We're working on doing a joint rollout for the new agenda management and the website at the same time.
Okay.
We're shooting for July, Bonita? Yeah. July 1st?
Okay.
So we have 29 days.
You know, right at the beginning of the new fiscal year, so.
There's a lot of transition and technology-wise that we've seemed to have stacked altogether. Not all of it worked out the way we had master planned it, in the sense that we were going to roll out new agenda management, a new website, and a new city code to all be digital. The agenda management and website will be digital. We have discussed continuing to work on the city code. So as council moves that forward, we'll roll that out online later in the year. No pressure.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and dive in to legislation and item number 11, which is the FY 2026 budget adoption. The City Council has completed its budget process, which began when the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget was presented to Council on March 25th. Since then, Council has held 12 public work sessions to consider the budget. On April 22nd, And May 29th, the City Council held public hearings in accordance with the city charter requirements. A list of changes were prepared based on council discussion at the final budget review work session on May 15th. The budget is now ready for adoption. The city charter requires the budget to be adopted by June the 10th for the fiscal year starting July 1st. So included in the packet is a memo listing the changes that have been suggested to the budget as it was proposed on March 25th. So legal counsel has suggested that we need to vote on each of these changes and then on a new total. Once the changes have been approved, council can proceed to the next item of business, which is the ordinance to appropriate the funds included in the budget. So I'm going to add a caveat. At the work session that we had, the final budget work session, we talked about a number of modifications to the grants and contributions section, and I'm going to propose that we vote on 2 or 3 of those, not all of them, because we didn't really even take a formal straw poll, and I think it would be helpful. But before we go there, I was wondering, Mr. Samarone, did you talk with Mr. Deloche about any of the technicalities of passing the budget? In the memo, which you thoughtfully prepared, you mentioned that for years we would actually go through the budget and approve each section separately, but more recently we've done the approval all at once. And I believe Mr. Deloche or Mr. Pounds may have actually been the one who weighed in and said that we did not really have to do it that way.
They are, the way that Ms. Gaiman has outlined the sections would be an appropriate way to follow the approval process. So in the memo titled copy of budget changes with dated May 28th. So you want to jump in, Ms. Gaiman?
Sure.
So if we follow the approval by sections, many of the sections have changes, and it would be best to confirm and council vote on those sections. Are you?
I think so. Can you hear me? So do you want me to go line by line? This document identifies the changes that were recommended on May 28th, not the 15th, but the May 28th at the final work session. And it was just a few of them. And so they're outlined in the actual memo, but also there is a document that shows where those changes will actually show up on what page and in what department. And so I can do it either way, both ways or either way.
Well, I think we can do it both ways, but
Okay.
as I said, I want to pause to vote on a couple of the items in the third section. I guess that's the 2, 3, 4. Actually, it's the fourth section, miscellaneous grants, advisory boards, and contributions. When we were holding the work session, we did say that we were going to have to vote on a couple of them. So I want to
Okay.
provide that opportunity to any council members. So
So when you're saying third section, we're looking at 7?
miscellaneous grants and advisory boards from page 242. I think that's item number 91.
Yeah, I think it shows up as number 7 on that document that Ms. Gaiman was referring to.
Yes, number 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you would like to go through the memo, I can do that and then move over to the spreadsheet.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, in general government, there's 3 changes. One change to city council on page 101, where you authorize us to increase the professional services by $10,000. So that line has moved from $30,000 to $40,000. For legal services, on page 131, there's a decrease in the legal services by $6,800. That line now reads, goes from $80,000 to $73,200. Then the third change was to decrease or really eliminate a particular line item within the Public Officers Association budget on page 134. Sure, go right
Just to,
ahead.
just to give you context on that change, council was concerned about the lack of a legislative consultant at the PGCMA organization. It also was concerned about the city's participation in the PGCMA body. So the council had requested that we add the additional $10,000 for potential additional legislative advocacy or support services, in the way that that $10,000 increase is being funded by the elimination of the $3,200 in membership fees for PGCMA, and a reduction in the general legal services of $6,800. So together, those reductions make up the $10,000 that is being added in professional services.
That is correct, and so there's no net change in that particular, in general government. The next section was, or is, CARES, page 193, where we decreased the budget by $15,900. So that budget will go from $244,900 to $243,800. That $15,900 was a reduction in the salary and benefit line where I had over budgeted for that a particular employee. And then the last section is the miscellaneous line, Mayor, that you're talking about, the grants, advisory boards, and contributions on page 242. So that line, where that total budget decreased from $271,800 to $217,600 as a result of the awards that you all granted to the advisory boards and contribution lines. And so we can go to that.
I think there may be some points to discuss on the ones before we get to that, though.
Okay.
Please, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, because the 3,200, from removing ourselves from PGCMA, partly because they will no longer be allowed to have that legislative consultant, but also because of some of the challenges that organization has been having recently. But I think another strategy to take with that, instead would be to budget the amount, but convey to PGCMA that we want to change. We don't want to be active participants until they get their fiscal house in order. I mean, that doesn't change the fact that they won't have the legislative consultant anymore, but I think there is some value in the community and networking provided, and I agree, after some of the incidents from earlier this year, I was very concerned, but I think there have been some attempts with the new leadership to make changes, and there are some proposed changes to the bylaws that I think may improve some of that. And so I guess I think something to consider is that rather than taking that out entirely, we sort of give a grace period to see if the new leadership can actually make some changes to make the organization more effective, which I think there's been some movements in that direction, but there hasn't been enough time to finalize that. That's just, I spoke to someone else from another municipality today, and that's what they're doing, is they're still budgeting for it, but they're sort of holding off on maybe fully paying the dues until they see if the financial guardrails that are supposed to be putting in place actually are put in place and are utilized. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, thank you for proposing that. I would concur, and from the level of the Maryland Municipal League, they've actually put some measures in place in addition to some of the bylaw changes that have been proposed. So I think that's a good approach, and I think that we should do that, as you suggested, budget it.
But maybe not spend it yet until we confirm that they have put those measures in place.
Okay,
So-
so keep the budget the money, but don't pay the dues.
I mean, the disadvantage of that is then we can't actually vote on the new bylaws. That's what I was also thinking about. I think that there's sort of a little bit of a trade-off. If we pull out entirely, then we don't get to vote on the changes to the bylaws. But they are already sort of planned, they're just not officially voted on. So I think it's a little bit of a challenging situation.
Okay, so it is, because it makes it a little bit confusing. So when are the dues usually paid for PGCMA?
I believe it's in October.
Around that
Okay, well then, all right.
Okay,
So now we have, okay, so we have a few months to see how it goes, and then we can make a decision. Right?
Ms. Niesel or Mr. Roberts, go ahead, please.
This is not surprising, but I just wanted to say that the problems with PGCMA didn't start this year or last year or the year before. They're long time problems. And I don't think they're gonna just go away overnight. And instead of, if we budget this money, that's money that we can't spend somewhere else. And I just don't think you keep on encouraging someone by giving them money and then thinking it's gonna change, No, at some point you gotta put your foot down and say, no, this doesn't work. And if you're not willing to do that, it's not going to change.
Councilmember Niesel.
Thank you. I've been giving this a lot of thought today, and one of the reasons that I would personally feel comfortable leaving PGCMA is because we have the 4 cities, and I feel that alliance really, really works well for us. And while I tend to think hyper locally and always put Greenbelt first, I do in this situation not want to be part of a groundswell that is undercutting the importance of PGCMA, with College Park also potentially pulling out their support. I do worry that the very smaller municipalities in Prince George's County would be losing out on a pretty big support network if PGCMA were to go under. I wonder, however, if we could keep this out of, continue to do it the way that Ms. Gaiman has assigned, and then if we do decide to pay dues in October, take that out of the council line item as one of our special projects.
Comments, Ms. Gaiman?
I just want to remind you that as the budget stands right now, there is $25,800 available, revenue minus expenditures. And so if you went that direction, there's dollars that's available.
Ms. Pompey, council member?
I would feel more comfortable doing it the way Ms. Niesel suggested, although for me to even want to consider going back to that organization, they would have to do some really, real actual accounting and budgeting, which they don't do right now. I would want to see for the past 3 years at least, I want to see what money has come in and where that money has gone. They have not shown that to the body. I want to see a real budget that's not just an Excel spreadsheet of, oh, we think maybe it's going to be this much money. And, and I want to know why we're still, they're still raising $40,000 if they don't have a legislative consultant to spend it on. I mean, I feel like the budgeting has just been so poor, and there's been such a serious lack of transparency. If I want to see where every single dollar is going. There needs to be serious accountability coming out of that organization, because there has been none for years. And the moment someone tried to bring accountability to the organization is when all of this happened, right? So this didn't get unearthed until somebody was like, hey, something funny's going on with our money, which should have been identified years ago. So I would need to see, if we plan to do this, we need to send them a letter and tell them this is exactly what we need to see from them if they want us to be part of that organization. Those are our tax dollars. And if we're going to give them any money, we need to know exactly how they're spending it, which is not how things are set up right now. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to counter that a bit. I think your perspective is valid, but I think there's a shorter term kind of perspective that you may have. And I do think that good stewardship has existed within that organization over the years. There's been a problem 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But as I said initially, there's been a change in the governance from the Maryland Municipal League. So at this point, the Maryland Municipal League will actually be able to see those things graphically, because they will be they'll be able to see that very easily. So rather than talking about this a long time, I'd like to actually, would someone like to make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I think with Ms. Gaiman's point, that if we make this adjustment now, and if we don't actually pay our dues until October, that gives us until then to sort of decide, and if we do have a little bit of wiggle room in the special projects leeway, I would be comfortable with leaving it with these adjustments as presented here in the memo, with the understanding that we will figure out what the requirements, and I think it's an excellent idea to sort of spell out to PGCMA that, sort of, these are the things that we want to see before the next time, and hold off on the decision if we don't need to be current. If we've already paid and it's not due until October, then we don't have to make this decision right now necessarily if we have a little bit of wiggle room. Looks like.
Just some additional background. Part of the change that council requested this is it believes that it would not have the same legal advocacy support at PGCMA, so there's that $10,000 that's being allocated elsewhere. If you believe that activity is coming back to PGCMA,
It's not coming back.
so then is the primary purpose of the membership is this collective advocacy group. And what I was going to suggest is that if time is not of the essence, you have this $10,000 allocation that you're doing in legislative support. If in the future you choose to reallocate that money out of the legal services back to the Public Officers Association, that's possible. But all of that's possible at any point in council. So to your point, Mr. Mayor, that the decision doesn't have to be made today. The money is still in the budget. You're not completely eliminating that $3,200. You're just moving it somewhere else.
Well, we'll say we decide in October, yes, we're going to go ahead and pay the dues, then there's no problem.
Correct. I think the bigger issue is if you're going to consider paying PGCMA $3,200, if in the past it was for this legal support, what is it in the future?
Well, I think it's for more than that, but Ms. Pompey.
I mean, I think that's also a good point too, that maybe all of the dues for that organization need to change if we're no longer supporting a legislative consultant, which is what the majority of the budget used to go for. So that's another issue that I think that needs to be discussed probably within that organization, but like, why collect all this money if we don't have something to spend it on like we did in the past, frankly?
Councilmember.
We have limited funds in this budget, so I would definitely want to see it allocated elsewhere for now. And if we hold off and choose to do it at a certain time, not only do we need to understand what's going on financially with that organization, but we also need to understand just their governance structure, what outcomes they're seeking to have. So to the point of whether or not they're going to have a legislative agenda that we can support. I don't see the structure right now, and I don't think it makes good sense to specifically allocate money for an organization that we're unsure of what the results of the organizational change will be.
I think we should be having this conversation with PGCMA. And to your point, Councilmember Niesel, the Four Cities Coalition is very, very helpful, very effective. But within the context of PGCMA, our partnerships with Riverdale Park and Laurel and Hyattsville are very important, and that is something that has come into play very, very often. And there are some legislative issues that we have to deal with. Looking at the MagLab and looking at other issues, we really need to support our fellow municipalities.
I really appreciated Councilmember Pompey's suggestion that we send a letter listing out exactly our expectations, because if they do not rise to those expectations, which are not, they're not super demands, this is something that any organized body should be able to provide a financial statement to its members. I think that we need to really outline that so that we can firmly say whether or not we are going to pay dues in October. I think that it will make all of our lives easier to make that decision if we have it in, writing what we're expecting and whether or not we were delivered those items.
Well, I would support that. I just don't want to send the wrong signal prematurely about what we're going to do.
Well, if we're going to vote on these changes, I will move to approve the changes in general government as proposed in the memo.
Second.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to go ahead and, Mr. Orleans, I did not recognize you, but I will, and it was intentional, but go ahead, please. So in the future, if you raise your hand and I do not recognize you, there's a reason.
It's no surprise to the mayor that I don't agree with his reasoning.
That's fine.
Most
Go
of
ahead,
the
please.
time. I'm a little confused, although part of my confusion for the last couple of weeks has been clarified. Vague references to an organization that should get its fiscal house in order, I understand tonight is PGCMA. I don't know why this wasn't made clear a week or two ago, but I'm confused. Reference was just made to general government, but Ms. Gaiman was going through her list here, and we were up to grants and contributions to city groups and organizations. How did we suddenly revert to general government and talking about what would be paid or not paid as Greenbelt's dues to PGCMA currently or until October, or when maybe they're getting some approval from the parent organization MML? I'm confused. So are we going to be returning to grants and contributions? Because
Yes.
I'm interested. Why did we interrupt that to return to general government to talk about
Because
whether or not?
Mayor Pro Tem asked the question and made a point and asked us to do that.
Because we had moved beyond the general government and I wanted to discuss that.
But we were in the middle of grants and contributions.
Because we were not in the middle of grants and contributions, I didn't want to start talking about grants and contributions until we finished general government.
At some point, may I ask if a fuller disclosure of the problem with PGCMA will be discussed in this council, at this council? And I'm guessing, I can only guess, since it was only a vague allusion to memos, singular or plural, from either Mr. Deloach or Mr. Pounds or both. Were they with regard to the question of whether or not dues is appropriately paid to PGCMA? They're not in the agenda package for tonight.
Yeah,
Those
no.
memos.
I think that was about whether we had to vote on each budget section or if we could do the ordinance all at once. I believe that's what Mr. Salmarone was referring to, is that, that I don't know that we're required to vote on each department one by one. We could do the ordinance all at once. I think that's what that was referring to.
Yes, that's correct. So the primary actions that council has taken on the changes. So looking at the document, copy of the 2026 budget changes document dated May 28th, council has just approved the general government modifications, which were to add 10,000 to the professional services and a reduction of 6,800 in legal services and $3,200, which is the Public Officers Association.
I think I just moved. I don't think it's been voted on.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. So, and that was on Mayor Pro Tem's motion. That wasn't actually on the budget.
Correct. The ordinance
Right.
is at a later.
Right, but I think we've usually voted on the changes and then we vote on the ordinances.
That's
Correct.
correct. That's
Correct. Then you vote on the ordinance as a document.
Yeah.
So let's continue on.
Okay. And I'm now looking at the spreadsheet because I'm identifying the changes by departments. So the memo that I just read just gave a summary of the changes that were actually made. Now I'm going to go to the spreadsheet that shows by the changes by department. And so we just went over general government, and that those changes of $10,000, adding on $10,000, reducing legal line by 6,800, and reducing Public Officers Association by 3,200. The net effect is a zero net change. The next section, do you want me to talk about the ones that have not changed?
No.
No, just the
Okay,
ones
great.
have changed.
All right, so the next change shows up in the CARES budget, Again, reducing that budget by $15,900 as a result of changing the salaries in the CARES 510 account.
And this was more of an administrative change, correct?
Yes, this is a change.
Do we
that-
still need to vote on that?
No.
Okay.
Well, we have to vote on the whole
Right.
Yeah,
section.
yeah. I budgeted too much for a particular person. Yes, correct. Okay, and then the final changes do fall under miscellaneous, under grants, advisory boards, and contributions that are on page 242. That entire budget was reduced from $271,800 down to $217,600. And the listing, I can go over the listing, the changes. How do you want to address these?
Well, I was wondering if any council members, we had the work session, we did not take any votes, so some of the line items were modified.
So would you like us to make motions on those particular items now, or?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember, please.
I make a motion to change the funding allocation to the space from the $24,000 suggested by the Grants Committee back to their to their full request of $30,000.
I second.
Okay. And is there discussion?
Line
16.
Well, I'll start the discussion just to parrot everything that Councilmember Pompey said in the work session. We have been told by our own recreation department that the space reaches audiences that we simply cannot as a city. And I believe that the better we can fund them, the more people we are providing services to by way of the wonderful team that we have over at the space.
Other council members?
I think it's great.
Motion, so I guess you can speak to your motion.
Thanks. Yeah, so that was just, Ms. Niesel really covered it. This is what I said at the work session, is that, I think they provide services that we are unable to provide, and they do it in a way that is affordable and accessible to a large portion of the population of the city that does not necessarily have access to the resources we have here in Center City. So I think, the more money we can give them, the more they can do, and that's the way I think we should be spending our money. So,
Ms. Pope?
I agree with everything you're saying. I totally agree. I think the space does a tremendous job and has so many programs. But then my question would be, well, there's a few others on here. They also reach, they also provide a service that we probably wouldn't be able, or that we cannot provide to the residents and all the groups that are utilizing them. So where do we begin and where do we stop? And so we have a detailed information on why it was chosen to give 80%, and I think the majority of the groups received 80% of what was asked due to our budget restraints. I think all our departments went through their budgets with a fine-tooth comb to see where can we save some money, where can we make sure that we're covered for what's happening this year, what's this year, what's to come, especially with we probably not going to have a great future in receiving federal grants, right? So if we're saying, okay, we'll give this group this amount, we're adding here, but we're not adding anywhere else. So I'm just like, would it be just more fair to give everyone what was suggested from the committee, and just to make it equal in a fair playing ground? I agree, and this is not personal. I totally agree that the space does a tremendous job. But, there's the argument, there's a few others as well who could use the extra money that they asked for. So I'm a little bit torn, and nothing personal, so.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, and I think I'll echo what I believe Ms. Niesel said last time, is that, it's a recommendation from our, the committee that we have for in terms of the funding for the groups, and, but it is ultimately council's decision to adjust that recommendation if we feel it's necessary. It's our fiscal responsibility. That's why we go through this whole process. So I actually think this is, it's, of course we want the advice of the committee and the reading the reviews and making the suggestions and making the comparisons, but ultimately it's up to us to make these decisions about where we think money is better used. So I think this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing, not just rubber stamping what the recommendations were from the committee, but thinking very thoughtfully, sorry, that was repetitive, thinking about the recommendations and where we get the most, because I think one of the things about the space is that it's also in Greenbelt West, where we have much less of a reach in terms of activities. Many of these others are in the center meeting at the community center and other sorts of things. So I think in terms of trying to get the most impact in places where we don't have as much space for recreation facilities. So I think I just disagree with you. I think this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing, is making decisions about where the comparative value is.
I'm not surprised. But we also looked at a $3 million deficit at one point when we began this budget. So I think that needs to be said. And it's not like we don't want to share, we don't want to give money. I'm just saying maybe this year we should be a little bit more frugal. Next year maybe it's a better outlook, and we can add to it again next year, like we have done in previous years. We have added. If we had a good budget, we did add to it. I'm not saying take anything away, and I'm not just saying just rubber stamp everything somebody else says, but I do take this in consideration in the process. I think is pretty solid.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Roberts?
We definitely have the responsibility to take everything into account. And the one thing we need to take into account is that we're, $4 million in the hole. And it's our taxpayers that have to pay that bill. So the question, I think, what Ms. Pope is saying is what is the fairness behind it? Because if we're just going to pick out certain groups and give them everything, and other groups, get a cut, and then the taxpayers just have to foot the bill, maybe that's not the best thing to do, and maybe that's not fair. I mean, I'd love to give the space, more money as well, because I think people who do good things should get more, get some money. But at the same time, we have to be fiscally responsible because, I don't know if you realize it, but some people in this city are being priced out of the city. They cannot live here anymore because, number one, the taxes are too high. If you live in GHI, your GHI fee is like through the roof. And, very high for a small co-op. It's hard for a lot of people to continue to even live here. So that's the reality that I'm looking at. So I think if we knock a couple thousand off of each one of these, and I think the committee did a fair job of that, and why have a committee if we're just going to ignore them? And so it's fair what the committee came up with, I think. So I think we should vote on the whole package, and that's it. Let's not single certain ones out,
Thank you. Councilmember McKinney?
I think one of the things that we heard from Mr. Varda as the committee was going through it, and one, I appreciate all the work that the committee did to come up with the recommendations, but I think one of the things, if I'm not mistaken, was there wasn't any weight given to certain organizations. So if you look at the scale of which some of the organizations serve the community, none of that was kind of taken into account. I don't want to say none of it. It was taken into account, but there was no weight in the actual percentage that was then recommended for allocation. So I think it's hard to make a decision without looking at like basic numbers. So if you look at the space and you look at the number of people that they're serving, that actually, the scale of that might actually be larger potentially than some of our other organizations. So just like we looked at some organizations that were serving very few residents, we decided that potentially we needed to scale back because the scale of it was less than maybe has been in the past. So I think the space is serving potentially more. So, and I don't know if that was taken into account when the committee actually made its recommendations. With that being said, I do think we do have a budget deficit. So one of the thoughts is, you know, and maybe it's a friendly recommendation. If it's not the full 6,000, could we look at still giving an increase, but maybe not up to the 6,000? Maybe it's half of that. It's the additional 3,000 that gets them a little bit closer. That still puts it with a little bit closer to the recommendation, still giving them more because I think they deserve it, but also trying to be a little bit financially responsible given the deficit that we do have.
Well, thank you. You know, I find myself in a very awkward position. I feel like I'm going to agree with Mr. Roberts. So, you know, for me, it's about the process, and you know, we set this process in motion a number of years ago, and I think it's a good process. I think the various proposals are vetted thoroughly, and I think the recommendations I take very, very seriously. I think that they are thoughtfully put forward. So no slight against the space. I think they're doing fantastic work, but my preference would be to actually go with the recommendations of the most part. I don't want to circle around. I think we've all had something to say. Ms. Niesel, please.
Thank you for recognizing me. I realize this is my second time speaking on this subject. I believe that one thing I would caution us against is encouraging the groups to shoot the moon, because what the message we're sending, if we are saying that we are always going to accept the 75 or 80 or 60% recommendations provided to us by the grant review committee, we're telling them to just ask for more. And I really want to avoid them doing that. I want them to be very fiscally responsible in their requests. And I think that this year we do have some very fiscally responsible requests. We have some that outweighed or spent a little bit more what we could manage. But I want to be really careful that we're not sending the wrong message by saying, well, we're just going to go with the board review. Well, because if we're saying that we'll always approve what the grant review committee says, if the grant review committee is going to give between 60 and 80% of any decent proposal, then the more they ask for, the more they're going to be recommended for.
But we don't know what.
Hold on. And Ms. Pope, you've spoken twice. Let me just speak a second time. Seeing this process for a number of years, that's not what happens. And you know, there's no set percentage that's gone into place. The review committee in the past has highly recommended some programs, and others had proposals that look good on paper, but based on the experience of the residents, the advisory board members who were serving on that committee, they talked with the recreation department. So I think they make very, very good judgments. At this time, I think I'll pivot to any questions that are, I see, Ms. Davis, you've got your hand up. Is there anybody online?
No, I don't see any hands raised online.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. I'm a little confused. I was looking at the chart, and it doesn't look like there's any difference in what was asked. I did attend the work session that talked about the recognition groups, or at least like attend one of them. And the space is 30,000, 30,000. Now, I don't see what the headers are. Are you saying that you want to increase something from the 30,000 to something else? Then why are we arguing?
No, because the asked was 30,000. The recommendation was 20. The recommendation was 24.
I understand, but what people are seeing on the
Yeah,
TV
but people
right
are seeing
now
over here is not
this chart.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And you're arguing about something that they aren't seeing. So,
Well, so
put
we're
this on or put the right thing on. Also, down below, when you had the chart, it said that ACE had asked for 18,000 and you were giving them nothing?
No, that's the change. That column is the column of change. I
It's
think,
very confusing, this chart.
yeah, I think,
See? And then it has something with, I understand the green team and green aces are the same thing, but you got PSEC not getting anything, but CART getting something. The chart is really screwed up.
I think this is the chart is showing differences what was presented in the original budget.
Yes.
That's correct. The chart that's up there has zeros because in the proposed budget, those numbers were zero out. We did not put in an allocation for those groups. So the original budget shows the total available for allocation at the bottom line. Council is moving money out of that bottom line into their designated groups. We do have the charts of the recommendation by the committee and what changes were proposed at the last work session by council members. So what you see now on that sheet are the requests that council members made at that work session, and council was advised that they needed to vote on those changes at this meeting.
Yes.
So the number being there for 30,000 for the space, that was a specific ask by council, by more than one council member at the last work session, and those numbers were filled. So we filled in the numbers based on what council had requested. Initially, council said preload all the recommended amounts into the table. We did that, and then council members requested adjustments.
Ms. Gaiman, could you put up, do you have this one that you,
I have it. Let me bring it up.
no, that's a different one. That's the one we have now. This is a different one. And I think this one might be less confusing, the one that Ms. Gaiman had paper copies of.
I mean, I'm ready
yeah.
to call the vote.
ready
I
to
think
call the
if
vote,
no one
so-
else has anything else to say.
So let's go ahead and take a vote on this one. And in the meantime, if you do have the other version to put up, we can do that. So let's go ahead and take the vote.
Oh, hold on.
Yes.
I raised a friendly amendment, and we didn't necessarily take a,
You take that as a friendly,
I would prefer to just restore the full amount.
All right, here's the numbers. The column here, column D, this is the original recommendation by the committee. The item on column B is what council requested that we load onto the budget for this meeting. The column E is the request for the groups.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Is there any one of these, anything you want me to point out about this table?
No, thank you. That's very, very helpful.
yeah, I think this one's a little clearer.
Let's go ahead and take the vote. All in favor, do you want to restate the motion?
I think we should vote on the whole package, and then if you want to go back and do something extra, do that, but I don't think.
I thought there was.
There's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion
There's
on
a
the
motion on
floor.
the floor, so please, if you'd like to restate the motion.
I move that we grant the space the full $30,000 request.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. We already,
was the
it was,
second?
it was already on the table, yeah.
She was just restating for the record.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to vote no, just because of the process.
I mean, if we want to just do it, I would move that we approve the rest of them as outlined in column D here. These were the things we discussed, but I'm not sure that everybody wants to vote on the rest of them all at once.
But this was the only major change, this was the
That was the
only
biggest
change
change
for the
in
space,
this
right?
section, yeah.
So, okay, so.
Well, there's, the other change was the other more major change was the Refugee Aid Committee, which if we want to vote on that, I think those, I don't know why the Greenbelt Arts Center is.
Motion passed. Did it pass?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is the,
I don't know why the Greenbelt Arts Center is highlighted, but the other one, I mean, the other one was and this was my recommendation from last time, was that the Greenbelt Refugee Aid Committee They had requested 19,000. If you can scroll down a little bit, Mr. Solmarone, I think they're right at the bottom. They had recommended 19,000. I think actually the committee's request was 1250.
12,500.
Yeah, I think so.
That's correct.
And I had suggested at the work session to give them the same amount that they got last year, which was 5,000.
That's correct.
So I would move that change.
Is there a second?
Where's that on here? I can't see it. I know I saw
line
it.
20.
Oh, here, sorry.
Line 20.
So we're voting on the 5,000, is that correct? I just want to make sure.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes, I move that we give the Greenbelt Refugee Aid Committee the same amount we gave last year, which was $5,000.
I second that.
I think Mr. Rodney just wanted to, Mr. Roberts wanted to hear that.
Sneasel seconded it. So if there's no discussion from council, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Robert has opposed it. So the reason why we've just done this is at the work session, it was explicitly pointed out that we should, in fact, vote on several of these. So we're doing that.
I mean, I
So are
think-
there any other items on here that?
Yeah, I think I had proposed for, what were the two project grants? It was the Gate and, I think FONCA. Yeah, because those were the two project grants that were for very specific purposes and had very, specific budgets for what they wanted to do rather than being an operating budget. So I move that we fund the FONCA, the New Deal Cafe Arts, at their original request amount of $3,000 and Gate at their original request amount of $3,300.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. So a few changes, Ms. Gaiman.
Yes, so noted.
And then I think the other change we made in this was, it was not the contribution groups, but the advisory boards to give the Reparations Commission slightly more. I don't know if there's any other discussion on the contribution groups, if you want to do that one. So I would move to increase because I think what was originally in the budget for the Reparations Commission was
23,000, yes.
And I think after some negotiation, the proposal is to award them 25,000.
That's correct.
So I will move to award the Reparations Commission 25,000.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Okay. So now that we've gotten through that, we can proceed. Ms. Gaiman, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, so the one other thing that's not, it's reflected in the change of revenue, but not necessarily in the other line items, was the idea of the Save As You Throw program, which was one of the reasons behind reducing that revenue amount, was to give us the space to adopt that program going forward. So it's not necessarily a budget change precisely, because we already, and else we need to vote on the revenue change, but I don't.
Yes, you agreed to reduce waste collection by $50,000 since we were saving the $54,000 in contributions. So that is reflected in these numbers.
But do we need to vote on that?
I think it's a change, and
Yeah.
just to be consistent, I think, yes.
Okay, so then I would move that we reduce the revenue amount by $50,000 with the understanding that the purpose of that reduction is to pursue a pilot for Save As You Throw and continuing the food scrap increase. Exact details to be determined, but the expectation is we're removing that, reducing that revenue with the understanding that council is asking staff and Green Aces to work on a Save As You Throw proposal and continuing the food scraps with that revenue.
That's correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I just want to be clear and explicit that in making this adjustment to the revenue, we are not necessarily approving the pilot project. That still has to come before council for discussion and approval.
And we'll have to do ordinances to actually change the fees and everything. I think that gives staff the direction that is the purpose of that. We want to proceed, council wants to see a proposal on that.
So noted.
Is there any other further discussion, questions, or comments? Let's go ahead and vote on that item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. So, according to the memo from Mr. Sumron and Ms. Gaiman, we did, in fact, review the bullet points that you recommended that we approve prior to going to approval of the a motion to actually adopt the budget. So, Mr. Sumron, just in terms of our process, is there anything else that we need to do to move ahead?
No, we just need to note that there is a $3,300 net increase to the grants and contribution from what has been presented. Ms. Gaiman, how do you want to make
Yeah,
that
do you need
change?
do you need some time to actually work that out?
I just did. It raises it raises the expenses to $40,149,100. $40,149,100. So that'll be another change.
So do you need a few moments, like 5 or 10 minutes, to calculate that in before we actually approve it? Because what we can do is we can give you a little bit of time if you need it.
Well, I'm going to subtract this from the revenue, and I think we'll be fine.
Pressure, Ms. Gaiman.
It's okay. It's okay.
Everybody's like, that's terrible. I know.
So revenues remains at $40,171,600. Expenditures for 2026 is now at $40,149,100, leaving a balance of $22,500.
2,500. What was the revenue number again?
Revenue is $40,171,600.
So according to this, we can move to the ordinance to adopt the general fund, the capital reserve fund, cemetery fund, debt service fund, replacement fund, special project fund, Greenwich House Fund, Capital Projects Fund, Community Development Block Grant Fund, and Greenbelt West Infrastructure Fund budgets for the city of Greenbelt, Maryland, to appropriate the funds and establish the real estate and personal property tax rates for fiscal year 2026, beginning July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. So am I correct? Can we go ahead and do that? Would you like to make the motion?
So, we're okay with doing it all at once?
Yes, I believe we are.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I move for first reading and suspension of the rules, an ordinance to adopt the general fund, building capital reserve fund, cemetery fund, debt service fund, replacement fund, special projects fund, Greenridge House Fund, capital projects fund, community development block grant fund, and Greenbelt West infrastructure fund budgets for the city of Greenbelt, Maryland, to appropriate funds and establish real estate and personal property tax rates for the fiscal year 2026, beginning July 1st, 2025, and including June 30th, 2026. Do I need to include the numbers?
No, you don't.
Second.
Councilmember Pompey has seconded. This is a first reading suspension of the rules, so it's going to take a supermajority. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Niesel,
Yes.
Ms. McKinney,
Yes.
Ms. Pompey,
Yes.
Ms. Pope, Mr. Roberts, Ms. Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, so let's move to second reading and adoption.
I move for second reading and adoption of an ordinance to adopt the General Fund, Building Capital Reserve Fund, Cemetery Fund, Debt Service Fund, Replacement Fund, Special Projects Fund, Greenridge House Fund, Capital Projects Fund, Community Development Block Grant Fund, and Greenbelt West Infrastructure Fund budgets for the City of Greenbelt, Maryland, to appropriate funds and establish real estate and personal property tax rates for the fiscal year 2026, beginning July 1st, 2025, and including June 30th, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Ms. Niesel,
Yes.
Ms. McKinney,
Yes.
Ms. Pompey,
Yes.
Ms. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
No.
Ms. Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations to Mr. Sommer and Ms. Gaiman.
So much, Ms. Gaiman.
So definitely, you know, as we conclude our deliberations on the 2026 budget, I want to emphasize how challenging this has been, actually balancing this budget, you know, in these uncertain times, and being able to actually speak to our greatest priorities, but at the same time exercising the fiscal restraint that it's going to take to see us through the next year, the next few years. So the budget represents our fiscal policy, and the general fund, the $40 million, maintains the services that our residents depend on while generating a very modest surplus to reinforce our financial stability. I'm pleased that the reserve process that we put into place several years ago seems to be working very, very well for us. I'm a bit apprehensive about what the next few months have in store for us. We really don't know so much about how some of the changes proposed by the executive branch will affect our local budget. So we are very much dependent on you know, the state, the county, and the federal government for some of the certainty that we rely on. So I'd like to really praise the city manager, the city treasurer for all of your work, the department heads, and really all of our employees whose input shaped what the department heads have put forward. So it's a tough process, it's a tough time, and I just want to congratulate the entire team. Also, you know, mentioning the administrative team, the clerk's office and communications office, and all the work that they put into kind of shaping the document, and Mr. George for his steadfast assistance. It's a team effort. So, Mr. Summeron, thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank every member of the team. This is really a team effort. Every department, every team in the organization made some serious sacrifices to get us to where we are. We started with a $3 million deficit that ballooned to $4.5 million deficit, but we closed it, and couldn't have done it without the team.
Council members, Councilmember Pompey.
Yeah, I mean, of course, thank you to the whole team, but I just wanted to give an extra thanks to Ms. Gaiman. This is the last budget that she'll be with us here for. And I'm very sorry to say that because she's been a pleasure to work with, and she really guides this council in so many ways and answers our sort of off the wall questions. And she probably is like, what are they even talking about? But she really has been so responsive and so helpful for the past 2 years. I've gone through the budget process. So I don't know how we fill your shoes, but I know that Mr. Salmeron and Mr. Martinez are working on that, and that you're helping them with that as well. So just thank you for all the years you've given to our city.
May I just comment? I just also want to thank council for your support. In these 4 years that I've been here, I can't even believe it's been that long, and it's been a great run. And I want you to know that I have a couple more tasks to get done before I actually go. And yes, one is to help put someone in this seat so that I'm not leaving things in disarray. But it's been great. I'm not going to be far away. I'm going to just put on a hat that you all don't know that I wear. I carry another title, Reverend Dr. Bertha Gaiman. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm a chaplain up at Doctor's Hospital, along with a couple other hospitals. So I won't be far away. So I'm excited about what I'm about to do, but I'm also grateful that you all allowed me to serve in Greenbelt. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. So, Mr. Summerall, when she goes in her office, lock the door behind her. Keep it. Any other council members wish to comment or make a statement?
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's going to move us to item number 13 and other business, the presentation of the fleet and equipment electrification plan. Staff is going to present the fleet and equipment electrification plan for council's acceptance. This plan outlines a strategic phased approach to transition of the city of Greenbelt's vehicles and equipment fleet away from internal combustion engines towards electric alternatives, supporting the city's long-term commitment to sustainability and environmental stewardship. The plan aligns with the City Council's adopted focus area of preserving and enhancing the legacy of Greenbelt as a planned and environmentally proactive community and maintaining and investing in infrastructure. The fleet plan identifies a 10-year pathway to electrify city vehicles and equipment in alignment with regular replacement schedules, budget availability, and technological advances. Implementation will include the installation of city-facing charging infrastructure, identification of funding opportunities such as grants and utility partnerships, and annual evaluation of vehicle availability and cost. Mr. Summeron, thank you for putting this together. The effort complements previously adopted electric vehicle infrastructure, the plan, the EVIPG plan, and integrates relevant recommendations for city fleet and facility needs. So, Mr. Summerlin, would you like to kind of present this information to us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm joined by Mr. Tim George and Kevin Driscoll Carpenter, who is going to be presenting on this. So I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder on this. So, Kevin, you're up.
Kevin?
Oh, Mr. George, you start first.
So it's a team effort, kind of much like the budget, really. We had a pretty big team on this. Am I sharing or are you sharing? So quick agenda. We're going to try to get through this fairly quickly, just so that we have a lot on the agenda for tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the introduction of the effort and the purpose, and the team and the process. And then Kevin's going to jump in and talk about the CDFA report and the recommendations. And of course, you all can interrupt us along the way. A lot of things we're doing with EV, we've already started. You know, we've got a lot of stations in already. We've already purchased a number of electric vehicles as well as hybrid vehicles. So we're in the process. We also have the EVPIG plan that the Green Team, the Green Aces did, that really focuses on public facing. A lot of that has been implemented as well, and a lot of that thinking went into this plan, and we'll kind of talk about how they dovetailed in a minute. So the purpose of this plan was really to kind of electrify the city from a internal looking, from a city services for our operations. There is some overlap with public facing for the residents, but because the Green Team, the Green Aces did such a good job on their external public facing plan, this one really was focused on internal. Again, Louisa was very active in that project. She's also on this team. So there's a lot of overlap and a lot of dovetailing between the public facing and the city facing. So the main purpose we had was, how do we go over the next 10 years to convert as many of our fleet to electric vehicles as is practical and cost effective. As we've talked about in a number of different meetings, a lot of vehicles are not ready for EV conversion, especially the heavier trucks. F-250s, 350s, 450s, there really is no electric option at this moment. But then again, there are electric trash trucks, which we have in the budget to purchase one. So that was part of what we looked at, and also making sure that we kept this within, to be fiscally responsible, within the budget we have allocated. So we're not talking about replacing any vehicles before their time. So those are some of the kind of the things we looked at. Basic terminology, I think you all know. EV is electric vehicle, which is fully electric. You know, that's the Mach-E that we have out front, the Tesla, the Volts, those sorts of things, 100% electric. The HEVs is kind of the original, which is really the original Prius, where the vehicle is really run by a gasoline, an internal combustion engine, a gasoline engine, and the electric is just an add-on. It just helps to lower the gas mileage. The big popular one now are the plug-in hybrids, and that's where a lot of the vehicles, even the German manufacturers, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, they're all getting Mercedes very big into the plug-in hybrids. Again, you have in that case you have an internal combustion engine and an electric engine that both work together to power the vehicle, whereas the hybrid electric vehicles, the electric engine is only designed to help lower gas mileage. And then EVSE is the technical term for what we just call a charger. So that term is throughout the report, but it's really just a car charger is the EVSE. And then ICE is not the other ICE. This is internal combustion engine, so it's a different kind. Guardrails, which I spoke about just a moment ago, really is we're looking at this report specifically is focused on city facing. So how do we get public works vehicles, police vehicles, admin vehicles, code over to electric fleet? We're also looking, Kevin and the team at DPW, we're also looking at handheld equipment. So that's blowers, lawnmowers, zero-turn mowers, that sort of thing. A lot of those are convertible now. Some of the things like blowers, the battery length is just not good enough for the weight of the thing. However, zero-turn mowers, you have those in all electric. They're even making big front loaders in all electric as well. So we looked at all of the different things, both apparatus, handheld equipment, as well as over-the-road vehicles. Again, the conversion cycle we're talking about is on the normal wear and tear life cycle of the equipment. Because electric vehicles tend to cost more than gasoline vehicles, electric equipment more than gasoline equipment, we don't want to replace equipment that is functioning well right now. So and we have so much equipment, we have a lot of equipment that rolls every year. As the equipment rolls over in a given year, that equipment, those vehicles will be looked at for electric replacements. We figure in a 10-year process, we'll get a lot of that done. But again, based on our budget issues over the last couple of years and assuming that next year we may be in a similar tight budget, especially with federal dollars disappearing on the grant side, we want to be fiscally responsible in terms of our recommendations on when to swap them out. And then the last point I made earlier, which is we're also waiting on technology. We don't know in a couple of years, hydrogen is kind of, bless you, hydrogen is kind of making a move. So we also want to pace ourselves. We don't want to jump too quickly into electric and then find that another green technology is there in the wings. So that's why we want to pace it appropriately. So with that, move on to the next. The team members, it was a pretty robust team, really across police, public works, admin, did a really good job. A lot of research, a lot of good effort was put into this. Kevin is here tonight. He's going to present the second half. Dr. Robles and Carrie are on the call. Carrie was very instrumental in helping in terms of the grants. We've done a lot of grant work. We also just found out we finally got our award for our tax rebate. So we got $15,000 rebate for electric vehicles that we purchased that we were able to, even though we're not really a taxable entity, we were able to do that through the IRS process. The nice thing about that is going forward, as long as the feds keep that program in effect, every electric vehicle we buy, we can then go ahead and seek additional tax rebates. So we are looking at green dollars, and Carrie's a big part of that. So that's the team. Of course, Desmond was there on the physical side, Josue and I from the admin side. So a lot of folks in these meetings. We met probably once a month, twice a month for the first couple of months, and then kind of broke out duties. And DPW had the heavy lift to do an inventory of all the vehicles, all the equipment, all the handheld, getting that to our contractor that Kevin will describe in a minute so they could do their analysis. But I really want to thank Brian Townsend, Brian Kim, and Desmond for the heavy, as well as Kevin and the team, for the heavy lift to pull all of those vehicles, all that information, purchase dates, fuel efficiency, repair costs, all of that together in a great big huge spreadsheet that our consultant used to help kind of give us our efficiency and recommendations. Oops, went too long.
Great, thank you, Mr. George. So talk about the, did Did you have
No,
another?
you go ahead.
slide?
Yeah, you good. Yeah, go ahead and hit process.
Okay, go ahead, process.
So very quickly, the process, as we said, we did a pretty comprehensive analysis of the existing vehicles and equipment inventory, and that was really DPW rolling up their sleeves and making a giant spreadsheet that we then used, and we included that in the ICF report that Kevin will talk about in a moment. We looked at all the site planning for charging stations. A lot of that also came out of the Green Team and Green Aces report, looking at the locations that they had identified for public sites. A lot of these sites may end up by being both public and private. For instance, the site we're doing in the library parking lot, the back community center parking lot, will have both public and private charging capabilities. Some of the grant funding is only allowed to use is for public facing, some is for private facing. Some of the grant funding is for both. So we're taking that into consideration as well. Developing cost estimates on the new vehicles, and a lot of that came out of the report that Kevin will describe, as well as us doing our own research and looking at vehicles. We bought a Mach-E for the city, so we have an electric vehicle, a fleet vehicle for admin that we use, and I know that Code has a number of vehicles, Public Works has a number of electric vehicles as well. Identifying funding sources, and that maybe be where the rub is now, with a lot of those funding sources having been federal and a number of them states. The state, of course, has its own budget issues and concerns. The feds, anything in the Green New Deal is being cut back significantly, so we're not sure what that means in terms of EV funding for vehicles and EV charging. We're going to continue to proceed along the path we're on until we're told otherwise, until the grant funds are officially gone. I was talking to Kevin before the meeting. We've got $300,000 or $400,000 in grant applications for federal sources ongoing, and we're not going to stop those until we get official word from Treasury, from the Fed, that they're not going to fund them. So we're staying on the process, very hopeful that we have that. If those funding sources, grant funding sources, do go away, then we'll have to just kind of rethink our strategy in terms of the timeliness of how we can get these loaded, so that we're not putting the full burden on the city budget. And then, of course, acquisition and installation of the charging infrastructure. Again, that's grant funded, that's city funded. We used ARPA for the library site. Unfortunately, the ARPA is no longer with us, but that was a $200,000 project, so we're able to use ARPA funding for that. So it's really a comprehensive process, from soup to nuts, looking at everything we need to do in order to effectuate this plan. This is looking about 10 years out, but of course, EV transition is really a 10 to 20 year. We've got, over 100 vehicles, and equipment is even more than that. And as we want to convert as much over as we can, it will be somewhat of a lengthy process. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Kevin so he can kind of take us through the study that we had done, and then the recommendations that we're putting forth.
Thank you, Mr. George. So early last year, we engaged with Pepco to join this program, and what they've done is hired a third-party contractor to produce these reports for municipalities to help with electric fleet conversion. The contractor is ICF, and they took all the data that we had on our fleet of vehicles, which is about, I believe, 149 vehicles. 131 of them are on-road vehicles, and 18 are off-road vehicles. And they compiled the data, looked at total cost and how the return would look, and gave recommendations based on that information. So going through some of the recommendations that were made, and what we've incorporated from those recommendations into the EV plan is that 46 of those vehicles would be cost beneficial for conversion to EV at this time. Now, this was originally done and completed in August of 2024. Obviously, I think there was a little bit different economy than it is now. We are able to do a refresh up until August, so we're going to do that again, take another look at it, and this will probably be a living document updated as we go forward as well. We can go ahead to the next slide, the key findings. So some of the financial benefits we're looking at for total cost of ownership, and this is over the course of 28 years is how they ran their calculations based on our replacement years, usually 10 to 15 years, depending on the vehicle. So starting from now, 10 to 15 years out, and then 10 to 15 years out from that last vehicle. Total cost of ownership was 28 years. Looking at savings of 595,000, almost 596,000, fuel cost savings of almost 500,000, and maintenance savings of over 350,000. And that environmental impact is equivalent to 2,539 metric tons of carbon dioxide, which is taking about 548 passenger vehicles off the road for a year, or planting 41,894 trees and grown for 10 years, as well as saving about 863 tons of waste from landfills. So this is kind of what their recommendations look like on a year-to-year basis. It's very front heavy in that first, based on the recommendation on the first year of conversion. That is not something that we can fiscally do at this point. And a lot of those vehicles were police vehicles, which we in the department didn't feel that we were quite ready to make that adoption so soon. We're still waiting for police vehicles to be proven on the field. In the field, there are certain studies being done on a couple different models. The Chevy Trailblazer is one of them. I believe even the Tesla Model Y, I believe, is another one that's being tested in some departments around the country. So once those come back proven, we can start implementing that as well, looking into putting charging infrastructure into the police department and working out logistics for how we're going to work that system. And so right now we're looking, focusing on light duty vehicles, and we did just recently receive a grant award for a electric trash truck refuse vehicle, which will cover 75% of the difference between the purchase of the electric vehicle and its internal combustion equivalent.
And if I could jump on one thing, the report, we are recommending at least one pilot electric vehicle for the police. So as Kevin was saying, we're going to see whether the Mach-E is one platform, the Tesla Y, and the Trailblazer. But what we'd like to know, I've talked to the city managers, is to get at least one of the officers that maybe has charging capabilities at home, so that's not an issue with remote charging, and putting one vehicle in service as a pilot program. If you just do one, if it doesn't work out, we have other vehicles. You could swap it out. If we had to then just turn that into a regular fleet vehicle for another purpose, but it'd be nice to get one on the road as a pilot. So we're not proposing that for FY26 immediately, but we are looking, once a vehicle shows that it's going to work. We've talked to the chief about talking to his team, talking to Captain Gullidge about, is there an officer, is there a program that it would make sense to do that for, just to see how it would work out in real time. Because you know what the mileage rating is, but there's a difference between mileage rating and how long the battery lasts when you have lights, radios, heating, air conditioning during the summer, because the vehicles are on the whole time. So we'd like to see that in action, but we don't want to jump in too quickly and have too many vehicles, and we certainly don't want to put patrol efficiency and activity at risk. So we started with one on a pilot program. That might be a nice way to start.
That makes good sense. Just Lieutenant Apgar is on the task force, right? And I've clearly heard from the police department in the past, they have so much gear, not just in terms of the equipment that's in the car, but also all the stuff that they have to carry. It seems like a Blazer or something a little bit larger than a Tesla or something like that would be.
Well, there's a few police departments. One I think is up in Rhode Island that has started using the Tesla S, which is more of a sedan, which worked reasonably well, but that's also a lot more expensive. The Tesla Y is a pretty big vehicle. It's basically the same as the 3, but it's got a much higher roof line, and they've been finding it pretty successful from an operational standpoint. Now, just in terms of the officers being able to use that, they don't use those for transport. They're not really well suited for cages. So if they make an arrest and they have to transport someone, one of the gasoline vehicles, one of the Blazers, or one of the larger Durangos would come and pick up the person. But they felt like from the size of the vehicle, the officers were getting in and out fairly easily. Now, the the lifespan of the daily use of it electrically is still kind of to be proven, which is what we're still kind of waiting for to see how well that's going to work out for them, and then see if we can apply that to our model here.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I was going to bring this up later, but since we're talking about the topic right now, so is the idea then that we would look for something in fiscal 27 would be our first opportunity for this pilot for a electric police vehicle? I know we just finished. I know you don't want to think about the next budget yet, Mr. Samaron.
Oh, no, I'm excited. It's got approved tonight. I think about the challenges tomorrow. We're pushing the envelope. We understand the challenges that it presents for the police department as a whole to have a fully electric vehicle fleet. But I got the sense that there could be a pilot process a pilot project within the select members of the team that some are already using electric vehicles for their personal vehicles, so they're already exposed to the technology. So I think that we could and may already have charging infrastructure at home because we provide take-home vehicles. That's one of the recruitment and retention tools that all the departments around us have is take-home vehicles. So we want to explore for this year to see what's possible. So we have funding that's approved tonight for some vehicle replacements, and we're going to look at those being electric vehicles as they allow. Now, I've also have been engaged separate from this project, but related, been in conversations with Enterprise Fleet Management and her presentations from him. I think the mayor, when he goes to conferences, he walks around with 2 business cards, his and mine, and I get a lot of calls from these conferences. So we've had conversations with Fleet Enterprise Management, and they have partners, municipalities that they work with. They have launched electrification plans. So they have access to vehicles that we currently don't have access because Enterprise is the largest vendor that buys vehicles for municipalities. So we're also looking at those models and see what we can do for next year.
I think my one other comment. So that's the soonest you're thinking is probably next fiscal year.
Correct.
Yeah. The other thing that I would just comment on is that I would encourage us to stay away from Teslas right now. Just saying.
I was not going to weigh in on that. Yes. I don't disagree.
Mr. Roberts?
I don't hear you saying anything about education.
Tell me more.
Workforce. If you're going to have all electric fleet, you have to have people that know how to work on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't heard you mention anything about that because if you want to send them out to the dealer right now, the dealer's like $260 an hour. So by the time 10 years from now, it's going to be even worse. And electric cars are much more expensive to maintain. So you have to have your people trained. But I haven't heard anything about that or the cost of that or how we would do about that.
It's a great question. Our mechanics have gone to EV vehicle maintenance school, so they've learned how to ground themselves while working on EV batteries so that they can prevent electric shock when working on batteries. We also have 2 certified installers of electric vehicle supply equipment. Both Desmond and David are certified by ChargePoint to work on electric vehicle supply equipment.
What? Supply what?
Electric vehicle supply equipment. Those are the charging stations and charging supply systems.
That's good, but there's a lot more to the electric vehicle than just, what you mentioned. It's not just grounding yourself to the battery.
Yes, there's more to it, but
it's a complex machine.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter Driscoll?
Right, so next slide, we're looking at sort of our planned goals for installations for charging stations. You can see the first 4 slots are where we've completed those installation goals. We have the plans for the community center and the library, as we mentioned before, through ARPA funds that should be completed hopefully by the end of fall this year, if not sooner. As well as planned location over at the police station, which is completed now, and that is currently charging the code enforcement vehicle, not the code enforcement, parking enforcement vehicle is a Nissan Leaf that we have purchased for the department over there. And then looking at other proposed locations throughout the city where we think that we can upscale our charging infrastructure. We've set priorities to where we want to really focus our funding going forward in the future, funding that we can allocate through the budget system, but also to counterbalance that budget with grants and other ways of acquiring monies. But looking at Buddy Attic Park, that would be one of those low-hanging fruits. We already have a lot of the infrastructure built into when we did the parking lot upgrade, so it wouldn't be too heavy of a lift to install charging stations there in the near future. And further down, looking at places like the municipal building, youth center, et cetera, where we could feasibly add more spots.
You know, it seems that I worry a little bit about getting, I hate to say this, too far ahead of ourselves with the installation. I mean, we've made some great progress over the past 2 years and have a number of charging stations that are being actively used. One thing that occurs to me, where is the private sector in this? You think, are there any private charging stations in commercial areas in Greenbelt? I don't think there are. Is there one over at Beltway Plaza?
Not at Beltway Plaza, but Verde Apartments has charging stations.
Motiva does as well.
Motiva does. So there's a few private charging stations in the city.
Pro Tem?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because the one at the police station, is that right now, the one that's completed right now, is that in the front parking lot or the back?
The front.
So it's noted as internal here, but is it being used by the public? Is it supposed to be used by the public, or is it really intended to be just
That one is just internal.
Okay, and is the control just, I mean, I guess if you're by the police station, they could ticket you if you're there and you're not a police vehicle, so
Correct.
I suppose that's
You
the
wouldn't
enforcement.
have access to the charging system itself. That
Oh,
one
okay.
is a lot like the ones at our Public Works yard.
Okay, so you have to have a card or a code or something to get into it, okay.
They're also not listed online, so they're not found.
Yeah, okay, so, and that probably will prevent a lot of people. I just could see somebody driving by and saying, oh, there's a charger, but they actually can't get into it. Okay, thanks.
Councilmember.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to add to what the mayor was saying as far as in this plan, is there a way to look more at public-private partnerships for these charging stations? Because I don't know if part of the original, well, it probably wouldn't have been the original given the age of the plan, but for Beltway Plaza, there seems to be great space to be able to put additional charging stations in there, and that seems to be something that would be a good partnership with Quantum to actually look at doing.
And with this plan is much more internally faced. We're looking at things that we can do for our fleet on property that we own.
Gotcha.
But in terms of the overall, with Green Aces and on those groups where we can expand, that's certainly an option for sure.
Thank you.
And we did look at those opportunities when we were applying for a EV grant. It was several million. I don't know if Tim wants to get into details, but we did look at public properties where we thought would be ideal locations for EV infrastructure, and Beltway Plaza was one of those. We also had a brief conversation with Beltway Plaza about the EV charging infrastructure. We were not the first ones to broach the issue with them. Volta is a partner of Giant, and they were looking to do a national implementation of EV charging stations at Giants. So they were also receiving inquiries. So there's their support. I think what we're seeing in the space is that green energy projects, the funding for green energy projects has come to a halt. So I think we're going to see that public-private partnership space be constrained. So I think the municipal governments and communities are going to have to play a greater role in that EV infrastructure.
Mr. Driscoll, Carpenter.
And then just moving on to the last slide is looking at some other potential funding opportunities that we've identified working closely with Carrie to pursue these. We mentioned the tax credit was approved, as well as the medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle grant. So that's already secured funding. But other opportunities are out there through the state mostly. As we know, the funding opportunities for a lot of these green infrastructure projects has been running dry, but we will stay on top of it as best we can moving forward.
Thank you very much. And Mr. George, thank you for the whole team for kind of pulling this together. It's a great piece to work from moving forward. We've invested a lot of money, a lot of our ARPA money. We purchased a whole lot of vehicles. So with the replacement schedule for the sedans and other vehicles, perhaps that 10-year placement plan for that may shift a bit, but I think you've taken that into account. Some of the vehicles that are listed, the price tag, the difference between a ICE internal combustion engine vehicle and an electric vehicle is pretty large, $30,000-$40,000 more. Others, it's not much at all. So I think this.
And as Kevin said, this is a living document. We'll update it really kind of every year, every couple of years as prices come down, technologies go up. I know we don't want to use the T word, but when electrics first came out, those were very, very expensive. And there was no competition. They were one of the only electric producers in the market. And now, almost every car manufacturer in the world has an electric or a plug-in hybrid variant. And because of that, all those electric prices are coming down. So even some of the prices in this plan are now a lot higher than they will be next year when we're looking to buy. The more vehicles that come on the market, the more those prices go down. So that's kind of part of our, again, while we're really targeting in the next 2 to 3 years, because those prices are going to be reasonable, but beyond 3 years, we're just going to recalibrate every year to look at the new numbers. The equipment prices are coming down for the EVSE equipment. And again, the technology may change. Hydrogen technology is out there, and they're trying to figure out whether or not they can make it work. And that, I think, has a better application for the heavier vehicles. So again, that's something that we're also looking at.
Member Tim?
Well, I just wanted to clarify on that previous slide, because that one of the grants there is that the trash truck that we just were awarded? So that actually could be up above the line now.
Correct.
So that was, and then the other thing I just wanted to comment on, or a couple of things, when I was reading through the full report was, I think one of the things that we're facing is that many of these, especially the larger vehicles, although I think it's neat that there's an EV trash truck, but one of the challenges is that many vehicles don't have equivalent electric vehicles, or they're prohibitively expensive. One of the things that we have not followed up on, another recommendation from Green Aces, was the idea of biodiesel. And so I think just a reminder that for some of those bigger vehicles, that's something that we should get back to. It's not part of this plan, but it's something that we already had a recommendation from Green Aces to pursue, and I would like to see us do that, because there are, I think, some vehicles that can convert to biodiesel or don't even need any conversion. You can just start using biodiesel, and then there are others that need some conversion. So I just would encourage us to also think about that, especially for those larger vehicles that may be suitable for that but aren't suitable for the electric vehicles. And then the other thing, just thinking about as we're looking at replacement costs and other things, I think you have some notes here about the where was it? Somewhere in here was talking about the financial benefits, the cost of ownership, fuel cost savings, maintenance savings. I think when we're looking in future at replacement costs, I just would like to see not just the base cost of the vehicle, but also the estimated savings in gas usage and maintenance. Because if you compare side by side, the internal combustion engine plus gas plus the extra maintenance and the lower cost of no gas and lower maintenance, I think that's going to be important when you're presenting to council a request for a vehicle. Give us the full information, not just, one vehicle is, the regular vehicle is 25,000 and the electric is 35 or 40 or whatever, but also it's 35 or 40, but the gas vehicle will cost this much over a year and that sort of thing. So I just would like to see those numbers, if at all possible. I know we may not have numbers from our own fleet yet, but in many cases they probably exist out there. So
well, that's kind of what this report did that we received. That they basically calculated that based on the information that we had at the time.
Yeah, and I just would say, like, when you're asking for a replacement vehicle, give us that information, please. We want those. I want those details. I want to see that because it's not quite apples and it's not apples and apples. It's apples and oranges. But we can decide which is the more expensive fruit in the long run. Sorry, that was weird explanation.
Okay, believe it or not, I was going to ask about biodiesel, but yes, Councilmember Niesel.
Thank you. Hi, I also wanted to talk about costs for a second. And I know it is just one-time cost, but I do wonder how much is the EVSE installation for, handling all of these, the new fleet? So that's part one of my question. And then part two is, do you have a plan for how you are going to monitor how the trash truck is doing on this like really heavy duty, like idling heavy sort of usage to compare it to the gas? I'm really, and congratulations on getting that grant. I'm so much happier to not be spending so much more money on it. On what I see is a little bit of a gamble, just because there doesn't seem to be a lot of research into these heavy duty EV uses. So.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, the EVSE, the input, that is a more expensive part of this whole process. We've been doing a pretty good job of leveraging a lot of grant funding and bond funding to make those projects happen. But you're correct, that is a heavy lift to get the power supply that you need to charge, to create the charging stations for it. In terms of the electric trash vehicle, we're going to be working closely with some of our local municipalities who already have some. I believe it's Hydesville has one, and they're on to their second one soon. So we're working with them closely to see how they do their routine, how they make that work for them. To start with, we're probably going to run this on a light routine, especially because our charging capabilities are going to need to be upgraded along with it to do heavier lifting with it. So it's going to be a process, is the answer to that question.
Okay, let's see. I really need to move on, but actually, there's two hands. Mr. Lippert.
John Lippert, 30A Ridge Road, Chair of Green Aces and the Green Team. I just want to make one correction. The EV infrastructure plan was developed by an ad hoc task force called the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Planning Group. It consisted of members of Green Aces, Green Team, but it also had members of the Advisory Planning Board and other Greenbelters, and I just want to make sure that they get their recognition that they deserve. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Orleans?
There is a reference on 2 pages here, and I think I heard it verbalized once, and I just don't know what the initialism is. ICEF. Can ICEF be explained? And then before you do that, hopefully you'll do that. I only occasionally have access to various magazines, but Transport Topics, which is a trucking magazine, Police Chief, which is a police magazine, various automotive heavy-duty vehicle magazines I see periodically. And assessments of conversion to electric vehicles have been ongoing for years. And Public Works magazines as well. And I presume Public Works Department has access to Public Works magazines. I hope the city's still paying for subscription. I just don't quite understand why this is as slow a process as it has been, but I would like to know what I think of.
So ICF is the that third-party firm that's hired by Pepco to perform these fleet conversion assessments, and it stands for something. Yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with what they stand for.
It's
but
not even on
that
their
was the name
website.
of the firm.
Good guess.
One question. So with Pepco, what did Pepco get out of this? Did they get a grant to actually initiate this process, or why? It's nice of Pepco to do this for us. Of course, they'd be selling us the electricity, but was there?
Right. There's that big benefit there.
Okay. Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, there is funding that the Pepco received to do this work, and they've contracted ICF to do these assessments. And we have a separate report that is the fleet assessment report by ICF. Have we shared that report?
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Rosenthal is online. Is it Ms. Rosenthal or is it Mr. Hartman?
Can you hear me now? It is Miss
Yes.
Rosenthal. That's why I logged in with my name.
Okay.
I just wanted to get back to something you were discussing a few moments ago, which had to do with the Tesla. And not all of the council members are aware yet, but there is a group of Greenbelt residents that will be coming before City Council to ask you to divest from all Musk-owned companies, including Tesla, SpaceX, and so forth. And I know Ms. Pompey has already met with the city manager, and so on both sides we're trying to get more information. So I would just strongly advise you, I know it's not now, it's going to be later, but that you not think about getting Teslas, even if you can get them very cheap because people are dumping them right now. But just as a citizen, I'm strongly encouraging you not to support anything that has to do with Mr. Musk, and so therefore not to purchase Teslas. They are, up till now, have been much more expensive. There are a lot of other cars, as I think you all know, the Chevy Bolts and so forth, and Ford, and a lot of other companies. So I just hope you would kind of take Tesla off of your wish list for now.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's not on my wish list, but thanks for your comment. Appreciate it. Any other comments, Ms. Davis?
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. I want to commend staff, and I know that council has been asking and requesting this for some years. It's not the first time we've asked for more electric vehicles and so on. Even the handheld equipment that the Public Works uses, we've been changing over to electric. So I want to commend staff for actually coming up with a plan that gives us a direction. So we're not just picking here and there, whatever. But I do want to make sure that even though perhaps we are getting our employees, our mechanics to start get training on that, we need to have fire suppression, special fire suppression for some of these vehicles, especially if we have a fleet of them. We can't depend on the fire company to come over with, you have to get these special blankets and things like that, because you can't just put water on a vehicle that's electric. Also, I want to keep in mind that the current administration in Washington, D.C. is doing their utmost to kill electric vehicles and charging stations. And so a lot of the funds, a lot of the grants that we counted on in the past, we can't. And there may be even some backlash that, maybe something like, well, if you are an electric vehicle city, we're not going to give you any federal grants. They do have a sort of a retribution type of a mentality right now, that if you go beyond what they think is correct philosophy, then somehow we'll get blamed for going the wrong way. But I'm glad that we are going the right way. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Pompey.
I move that council accept the fleet equipment electrification plan.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Roberts?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Just leave out the one person that has some experience here. But please, with the biofuels, don't even go there. Because, I've got experience working on those. And, I don't know if you remember, years back, Bark had a van up there that ran on biofuels. And they ended up throwing it in the garbage, because the biofuel destroys the fuel system. They fixed it once, and then they didn't want to fix it again. And that's not the only one that had an issue, but that's a separate issue. One thing I wanted to say is, this is all very interesting. I know everybody that wants the electric vehicles is serious about wanting to do something about climate change and what's going on with our our planet and all that. But I think in 20, 30 years, you're going to find out that the car society in general is just not sustainable, because it's not just what's coming out of our tailpipes that's wrong with the car. It's the millions of miles of asphalt and concrete that it takes for the highways and the roads, and you have to repave all those all the time, and it's a growing conglomerate of issues that is causing the climate change. It's not just whether it runs on electricity or natural gas or whatever it is. That's not the main problem with the automobile society. The main problem is all the other things that it does to destroy the environment. It's all the rare earth minerals that you're going to need to make the batteries and to make those electric cars. If you're just going to have a few, it's wonderful. But if you're talking about making hundreds of millions of cars, that's just something our planet's not gonna be able to sustain. And I don't know why more people can't see that, or maybe we just want to ignore it. I don't know what that is, but maybe it's just more obvious to me because I'm in the industry and I know about the mechanical stuff. But that's the issue. It's not what we're running them on. It's the fact that we have too many, and we're going to and what I see by having this thing, oh yeah, we're going to electrify everything, everything's going to be wonderful. We're just convincing ourselves that we can stick with with our life as it is. And I think the planet is going to, in the end, make us realize that it's not going to work. But
Thank you. Very thoughtful. Thank you. All in favor of accepting the motion on the floor, accepting the report, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Kevin, Mr. George, the entire team, Louisa, and the other folks who are on the line, thank you for this report, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is policy exceptions for the Greenbelt Cinema operations. Greenbelt Cinema, operating as a nonprofit in a city-owned facility, has requested modifications to several contractual and regulatory requirements in order to reduce operational costs and administrative burdens. Specifically, the cinema has asked for the following: a reduction in the required general liability insurance coverage from $2 million to $1 million, the fidelity bond requirement, given existing director and officers coverage, and finally, waivers of the amusement and admissions tax. Because these policy exemptions require council approval, staff is presenting the cinema's request for council consideration and direction. And we're joined by Dr. Caitlin McGrath. Dr. McGrath, how are you tonight? Once again, congratulations on the 10th anniversary. What a spectacular occasion that was. Moving forward towards number 25, which is coming up in just a few more years.
Right around the corner. Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me with you tonight. Appreciate it.
Do you want to, can you explain this request? I just read it, but
So
you're living it, so please.
Right. So the fidelity bond was something that was established in our first contract in 2015, which does feel like a blink of an eye, but after a decade, as we're looking to find efficiencies wherever we can, I brought this to the city manager to see if there was a possibility that we could reduce that. I think in the beginning it was a measure to create some safeguards and controls, which is a new venture, and there have been some issues in the previous operations, and so it was set at $2 million, and so I'm just wondering if that's something that we could look to lower a bit so that we could save a little bit on our insurance costs. And then admissions and amusement, we are exempt from paying that per the state's rules. It's written into our contract that even if we are found to be exempt, the city can still request that we pay it. And I'm here to ask respectfully if that's something that you would allow us to have the state exemption from, because it's a 10% tax on all of our ticket sales, and that would be another way that we could retain some of the revenue that we bring in through ticket sales as we're looking to combat inflation and our you know, our situation post-pandemic. We still are not at a point where we are to our pre-pandemic levels. We're still hovering right around or below break even, so we're doing everything we can to close those gaps.
Okay, and the first one, you mentioned two. The first one was the general liability insurance. Is that separate from the fidelity bond?
Well, yes, we have a number of different insurance requirements with the city, and so we're looking at where we can, you know, reduce the costs across all and as much as you would be willing to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Councilmember Pope.
Yeah, just a question. The general liability insurance that you have is a must-have, right?
Yeah.
That's a must-have. And so you're asking from 2 million to be reduced to 1 million?
Yes.
Where is the difference? What is it? How much is suggested that you have?
How much is suggested?
Yes.
Well, the city was the one, you all are, or I guess the city's lawyers, I'm not sure who was the one that made the decision to make it 2 million in the past. So,
Right, so, and what would be the difference between the 2 and the 1 million for your payments that you're making?
well, we currently have a couple of different bids out. We're looking at that, so I don't have an exact number right now, but I know that it will be lower. I just don't know by exactly how much.
How much you paying now?
All insurance went up, all for the HOAs and condo association as well, the general liability went
Right.
way up in the past couple of years.
Yes.
It keeps creeping up and
Yes.
it's,
We're seeing the same thing for
it's in a
us.
very high rate. We
Right.
were talking about that
Right.
just a few months ago. Yeah.
Mr. Roberts, I heard a question.
Yeah, I was wondering how much are you actually paying now?
Well,
How much does it cost you every month? Or I don't know
Yeah,
if you're paying by the quarter or the month or the year.
well,
do
it works out, different ones pay out at different times, you know, at different frequencies, but it works out to be monthly. We're at around $1,500 a month, so we're just trying to bring that down. And that used to be around $700 a month, so it just is, as Councilmember Pope was saying, it continues to creep up, so we're looking for ways that we
So
can.
has there ever been a situation where you had to use that
No.
insurance at all?
No.
I have a question for Mr. Samaram with that general liability insurance, because the Greenbelt Cinema is operating the facility, but it's a city-owned facility. So wouldn't our general liability insurance cover that partially?
So, Mr. Mayor, I think, and to fully respond to your question, it's important to look at the business. What's the risk exposure of the organization? It's a venue with not very much physical activity, so the general liability exposure is a fixture falling on someone falling in the space. Right, so I think the city would not be completely removed from general liability at the property because we own the building and we maintain the building. So we provide the maintenance to the building. So I think the impact of going from 2 million to 1 million, if someone intends to sue and get as much money out of a tragedy, we were likely to get sued. There's certainly added protection for the city if there's a $2 million general liability on the property. That means if there would be first in line before we pitch in for an additional money. So if somebody were to sue us for 3 million, our own insurance will likely look to extract 2 million out of that policy before we kick in, or our general liability kicks in.
Since it's a city building, and some of the costs that we pay as a city to cover all of our buildings would also apply to the theater building.
For the plant and property aspect of the building, not a general liability that comes out of a lawsuit. So it's our building, it's insured, the plant and property is insured, but the services are not. Does that make sense? Correct.
We also maintain parts of the building, do we
Yes,
not?
yes, we provide maintenance to the building, we pay for the utilities. We are responsible for the main improvements, such as we recently secured the $350,000 for the cinema renovation projects. So yes, so we're the owners. We do maintenance and upgrades to the property. The 2 million is specifically, the general liability is if outside of the specific coverage that the cinema has, it's the umbrella coverage for any potential liability issues that come up with the property. So you would just be reducing that ceiling to 2 million. I think, given the history, given the risk exposure of the organization, I think the city will be protected with the 1 million. However, there's always going to be a potential outlier, somebody that is looking for a big payout. But if somebody's looking for a big payout, we may not necessarily be completely off the radar. I think if someone intends to get as much money from the property due to an incident that happens at the cinema, we are likely to get rolled up in there as being the property owners.
It would be nice to actually to know what the difference in the premium would be from 1 million to 2 million. That would be helpful. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, just because I'm not sure that is it 2 million or 1 million per like incident? How does this work in a business context, the general liability? Because I'm just not very familiar with how that sort of coverage works compared to like car coverage that has liability insurance. Is it just that's the most that the insurance company would cover on any one incident if a fixture falls on somebody's head and injures them or something?
Without looking at the policy documents, it will be isolated to an incident. Per incident, that would be the general liability.
Yes, I mean, I don't have the policy in front of me, and so, but I can research that. But yes, that's my understanding as well, that it's
It's per incident.
Yeah.
I
Which
guess
again,
that
has
seems like a pretty large
never
amount,
been-
again, because it's not like, for the most part, people are doing particularly dangerous things in the cinema.
We encourage sitting down.
Yeah, yes, and not even getting up when it's dark, right? Wait till the end of the movie as much as possible, but, that sort of thing. So I guess, yeah, it still seems like a pretty large amount for the sorts of incidents that one might conceive of happening in the cinema.
I could slip on a piece of popcorn with butter.
True. Choke on a piece of popcorn,
I wouldn't want to go down the route of what potential possibilities will lead to lawsuit. I think it'll be endless.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, you've opined on these three requests. So with the fidelity bond and with the waiver, what are the issues that you saw?
On the fidelity bond and the D&O coverage, those tend to be interchangeable. So I would like to get a copy of the policy, but those are typically interchangeable.
Okay, and with the waiver of the amusement and admissions tax, what's the fiscal note for that?
Well, it because it's 10%, it's pegged to the ticket sales every year. So the highest it's ever been is 23,000. That was our banner year of 2018. It's more around 15,000 right now.
Councilmember Niesel.
So I'm sorry that Ms. Gaiman is already gone, but on page 20 of the budget, it says the admissions and amusement tax is $150,000, and 75% of that is from movie theaters. But is that from all of the
AMC.
movie? Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I'm just trying to get an idea.
Yeah.
Balance it against what I'm seeing here. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Orleans.
This just gives me an opportunity to restate, something I've suggested in the past. I have no way of knowing whether you and staff appreciate this, but I've long thought that the director of our fine theater and its programming shouldn't be at all concerned with business matters. I'm sorry to upset you. Frankly, the city owns the theater. It's a great value to Greenbelt that can't be replaced were we to lose it for any reason, including the cost of insurance. But that's not something the curator of the films, the programming, should be concerned with. The city owns the building. I think the theater ought to be folded into the recreation department, much like the museum was. And the director of the theater and her staff and her friends can still put on very good programming and not have to be concerned and come to council saying, we need help paying our liability. And we don't want to share the cost of the profits from the popcorn. That's nothing that you should consider. The city ought to
The public can't hear you if you're not at the microphone. The microphone is not picking you up, Mr. Bill.
If you create a program,
Okay, well, personally, I don't have a problem with the fidelity bond requirement. I'm curious, I would like to know the difference in premium between the 1 million and 2 million.
Yeah, as soon as we
And,
get those numbers back, I can send them along.
Councilmember McKinney.
So is there a budget implication, since we just passed the budget, if we are to waive the amusement and admissions taxes? Will we be looking at a smaller amount in that line item for the city?
Yes, certainly. We're 75% of the 150,000 in the budget comes from the movie theaters. So that 75 of 150 is coming from the 2 movie theaters. We can do a back of the envelope calculation. What are your
But it
gross?
would only be about 15,000 because
Yeah.
it's just me. I'm
Right.
the nonprofit that's AMC is not a nonprofit. So if you were to grant us the exception, it wouldn't apply to the funds that come in from Mission Amusements from the AMC, which is the much bigger number there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. 15,000 is still a lot of money, given that we have a budget deficit, so.
I hear what you're saying, and for us, you can imagine the size of our budget.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger percentage of our budget.
The one thing I would irritate, and I didn't fully answer your question, Mr. Merritt, the movie theater without the city's involvement would already be exempt from this.
The amusement and admissions tax. Okay, would someone from council like to make a motion? Go ahead, you have a question? Go ahead.
One additional question. Does the Greenbelt Arts Center currently pay admissions and amusement to the city? And if so, could they then come and ask for a waiver as well if we grant this?
Interesting. I don't know. We don't get a breakdown as to what the receipts are coming. They pay the movie theaters, or the theaters are paying the tax to the comptroller, and the comptroller sends us the payment.
I just worry about how many other nonprofits we could end up getting this type of request from.
Well, we wouldn't, because the nonprofits can apply directly to the comptroller for that exemption. In this case, there's an operating management agreement between the cinema and us. So,
Thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember Pope.
So I would maybe agree to doing this tax, so either or, right? I would go either or. But I would say, because we're always in search of increasing our taxable income, right, for the city, maybe for 1 year. I would say for maybe the tax exemption for 1 year.
I'm Councilmember Niesel's question has me thinking. So the New Deal Cafe, they're FONCA is the nonprofit part. The cooperative, are cooperatives exempt from?
I think the New Deal is a nonprofit now, isn't it? They
think they're
recently got
nonprofit.
nonprofit status, I believe. No?
But they don't sell
They don't
tickets.
charge admission.
Yeah.
Oh, no cover charge. That's right.
Right, so yeah, they wouldn't be subject to an amusement tax because they don't charge an admission fee.
And again, it's because we have an agreement with you all. It's in our contract. Like the state doesn't expect us to pay. It's the city council that has the contract
So,
with us.
so we need to, if we were to take that out of the contract was just renewed, or how long is the contract for?
Well, it's 5 years plus another 5 years.
So
Possible,
You're in the middle of a cycle right now?
Yes, we're in the middle of the first 5-year cycle.
So if we were to remove that clause, you would apply to the comptroller's office?
They already have told us that there's nothing that we need to do. They said, basically, why are you paying this? You don't need to pay us. So that's why we came to.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, so what it's effectively doing is it's increasing the subsidy from the city by the amount of the amusement tax by saying we're not going to collect it. We're fine with you waiving it, so we're not collecting that tax. So it's just, you know, we're not getting that money. So the equivalent would be, you know, just saying, hey, we're going to give the cinema more money out of the budget in some senses, that it's just sort of increasing the subsidy from the city budget in one sense, although in a variable way because it's based on the sales.
Yes, and if you'll recall, the last time I came before City Council, not this past cycle, but the previous one, and we talked about how the subsidy had been static since the year 2000, and could we bring it up to inflation? We still are below that number of inflation, and this would still keep us below that number. So counting for inflation, it should be around 97,000. It's currently at 75. So even with allowing this, which would be a huge help for us, we still we would be below that threshold of getting us, you know, equivalent to where it would be today's dollars accounting for inflation, if that makes sense.
So I guess, Mr. Salmaron, my question is, do you, besides it being something that needs to be council's decisions, do you have any concerns about granting these to the cinema?
No, any other business wouldn't be coming to us for this exemption.
I would like to move that we allow the Greenbelt Cinema to drop their general liability insurance coverage from $2 million to $1 million, to, I guess, remove the fidelity bond because it is covered by the directors and officers coverage, and to allow them to apply for the exemption from the amusement and admissions tax.
You don't have to apply.
Well, okay, so, but allow them to take advantage of that. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any additional discussion?
Is it
Yeah,
possi-
council member.
Sorry, is it possible to waive the exemption until the next cycle of their contract so that we can reassess?
I think you have other control mechanisms. You get to weigh in on the subsidy value every year. So if you're concerned about revenue, there's another avenue.
Okay, is there any additional discussion? Anybody online? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The
Oh, wait,
motion-
we did have one online.
Oh,
Sorry.
oh, no, oh, no. Who was online?
Miss Rosenthal.
Oh, Miss Rosenthal, are you there?
Well, actually, this time it is Michael.
Okay, you're confusing us.
Sorry about that. Hopefully my voice will stay with us. I don't speak for the cafe anymore because I'm not officially connected with it anymore, but we did receive our 501c3, so that is correct. Concerning the issue at hand, I'd like to say that I, as a resident, I totally support anything that you can do for the Greenbelt Cinema. They are a gem. They're an anchor for Roosevelt Center. They bring in folks from all over the region, and I think that it's really important that they stay solvent and running, because in this time of leisure and enjoyment, discretionary spending being constricted by economics, we all in Roosevelt Center need all the help we can get from the city, and your understanding of that is very important. The other thing I want to say is that if anyone is interested, you can also vote for the Greenbelt Cinema in the Washington City paper, Best of 2025. I highly recommend that. Under the Arts and Entertainment section, it's Best Movie Theater, although we're not a movie theater, we're a cinema. But the voting ends on June 12th. You can go to Best of 2025.washingtoncitypaper.com and vote for the Greenbelt Cinema as the best cinema in Washington. And please do everything you can to help the Greenbelt Cinema, because they are like wonderful, and the stuff they do for the community. And where else does the cinema do all this stuff? Nowhere. I mean, they do a lot of stuff for free because the residents need it. They're responsive to the community. They're responsive to snow days. They're responsive to education and responsive to kids and festivals and everything like that. So please do everything you can to help them out.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hartman. Thank you so much. Let's see, all in favor, please say aye.
Just voted.
Oh, we did? Opposed?
Yeah, we already voted.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. McGrath, thank you so much for all you do. Especially, I've noticed a lot of, you're opening the theater to a lot of other filmmakers to do premieres and to sort of show their work off. And I think that's great.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you all very much. It'll make a big difference to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's going to take us to item number 15, which is a contract RFP 2025-3R, Community Flood Resiliency Plan. Kevin Carpenter Driscoll is here to brief us. In the packet, there's a memorandum outlining this Community Flood Resiliency Plan. The city manager is ready to execute a contract with Limno-Tech to complete this plan, and we've received a grant for $75,000 to do this. Kevin, welcome.
Hello again. So we received this grant about a year and a half ago, working on this RFP, working with the grant through the state, and we sent out the RFP earlier this spring. Received about 7 competitive bids back, and through that we have narrowed it down to Limno-Tech as the awardee for this grant to perform the Community Flood Resiliency Plan, which is a really exciting plan that can really give some focus to our interactions with stormwater in the city and how we go about what sort of projects we pursue. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding it.
There's a public engagement, there's a timeline. What's the timeline?
Timeline, so we're looking at, originally we're looking at getting it through December, probably be into January at this point. But public engagement is going to be at least 3 public meetings to gain information about flooding in the area. A lot of that stuff is through word of mouth. Not a lot of it really shows up on data to find those kind of trouble areas. So that's going to be a really big component. And it's one of the reasons why I really gravitated towards Limno-Tech. All these proposals that we received were really competitive. I believe we couldn't have chosen wrong. I felt that Limno-Tech had a really good community engagement component to the proposal, so that was a really big deciding factor.
And how would this plan in a tangible way, how would we use this?
Yeah, so what it's going to end up doing is through modeling, through data collection, through the community engagement, give us a better overview of where our trouble spots are in the city and give us examples of what we can do to address those trouble spots. And more specifically, looking at ways we can engage with contractors and fund those kinds of projects. So I feel like in a sense we sometimes play a little bit of a whack-a-mole with some of the issues that we have, especially with stormwater. This will give us a little bit more of a roadmap.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I was glad to see this that we're working on this. And I appreciated they had some nice points in there too, and I appreciate some of their comments about models as well. I thought that, and there was the environmental justice focus of the Congressional Cemetery project that they did. So there were some things that really said like, oh, this seems like a good folks to work with. The two. I think the 2 comments more than questions, but just wanted to just point out that I think there have been some questions in the past about areas of flood risk in Greenbelt Station and the townhomes over there that I think maybe the maps are not as fine-tuned as they should be in terms of what's available, because there's actually a pretty high elevation difference between where Indian Creek is and a lot of the houses, not all of them, but a lot of them. So just pointing that out as some place that we may need to look at specifically for better data, because I think there may be some folks in the neighborhood who are paying more for insurance because they're in what is noted as a flood zone, but there's actually more elevation difference than the sort of some of the more granular views look. So just wanted to point that out. And then the other thing I just wanted to comment is that I did appreciate that they also called out working with the city to secure, like this was phase 1, but working with the city to secure future grant funds to do more to ameliorate some of these risks. And I appreciated that about their proposal as well, that they were looking further ahead. Now, part of it may be that they were hoping we will continue to employ them if we get those further funds to do further projects. But still, that was addressed, and I appreciated those things. So no particular question, just those two comments.
Thank you.
And it is going to be citywide, so you'd be looking at the different watersheds, over in the east from Windsor Green, kind of flowing down through Greenbrier and the Beaver Dam Creek.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there a motion?
I move to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Limno Tech to complete a community flood resiliency plan for the city, not to exceed a cost of $75,000, as provided through grant funding.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Kevin.
Thank you so much. So that's going to bring us to item number 16, to authorize the city manager to allocate up to $30,000 in grants in the FY25 budget towards community organizations to provide rental assistance to Greenbelt residents. And Council Member McKinney, you requested this item be added to the agenda for discussion.
Correct. Thank you so much. I think, one of the things, I think you had some great insight, Mr. Mayor, when we were looking at how can we look at all of our grants moving forward, and how can we put a pool of things together to make sure that we are setting aside grants that support our organizations. It seems as though in the current budget, we actually have some remaining dollars left over. So this is not related to the FY26 budget, but is related to the FY25 budget, which we have obviously just a few weeks left. And so if we're looking at the need in the community, especially given all the things that are happening at the federal level, one of the things that is of need is to ensure that we can provide as much rental assistance to community members as they are going through some challenging times. This was potentially an idea of ways that we could allocate some of our resources directly to our community, utilizing organizations such as GILA to try to facilitate the help to our community members. So there is a memo in there. I'm not sure if Mr. Salmarone wants to sort of speak on the process of what has happened in the past related to those funds, but this is just an idea of how we can potentially use the remaining of those dollars. We do not have to use the remaining of the dollars in this current fiscal year. They can carry over, but I do know that there is a need potentially right now for residents who are very much in need of rental assistance.
So with regard to the memo and with regard to the fund, how has it sustained itself in the past? It's a nonprofit. It's a charitable fund that's administered through the city. So typically, does the city make grants, contributions towards it, or is it sort of sustained with private gifts from individuals and organizations?
The current expenditures have been supported by residents and businesses in our community. So that's the $29,240 that have been dispersed in this fiscal year. In the previous years, council was very intentional about setting aside ARPA money for rental assistance programming, and that was over $1 million of ARPA money was used for those activities. So we had that that pot of money. We depleted it. We no longer have that money. So this is really a new. We just ran out of that money. So this will be a new endeavor.
And in your memo, was there any additional information?
Yes, we listed. I've included a report from Dr. Park on the limits that has been set by GELA. So there's a limit of $2,500 per household, and it's only one time. So anyone that applies it's currently only able to get it one time. Just in fiscal year 2025, we've made 21 disbursements totaling $29,240, which is just a little bit lower of the $29,396 that have been received. So essentially, every dollar that's coming in is going out, and that's on purpose. The team wants to get all that money out. There's a new effort from Gila to increase the donations that are contributed to the fund, and it recently partnered with the co-op grocery store to do a roundup program, so that shoppers could round up to the next dollar, and the difference, which could be from 1 cent to 99 cents, is added to this roundup fund that will be donated to the city. Now that's on a specific basis. The team secured a commitment from the co-op for it to be a 2 month program. Then there'll be other organizations put in rotation of the roundup program. I can speak more to the memo that's included in the packet, or anything else, how needed rental emergency assistance funds are.
No, thank you. I have a suggestion. This is a little unusual just in terms of the timing. We just approved the budget. You know, there's money from last year in the discretionary fund. But I'm thinking that because Gila is trying to raise some additional funding, and traditionally this funding has been from businesses and individuals, maybe we could set this up. I'm hesitant about the entire $30,000. Maybe if we did $10,000, but set it up as sort of a challenge grant, actually work with Gila and the food co-op and with the broader community to see if they can actually match that. So to the extent that we're able to match that money, perhaps we could do $10,000. In fact, I'll make a motion to that effect to try and stimulate partners, businesses, the various organizations that make contributions to make this happen over time. So I'd like to make a motion for a grant of $10,000. It's a challenge grant.
For discussion.
May I do a procedural check? Do we have a motion already on the table?
I don't think that of a motion, I don't think Ms. McKinney formally made a motion for the 30.
Okay, all right, so then we have a motion on the table. It's a new motion, it's been second.
Yes, yeah. Discussion, yeah, please.
Sure. So I know that there are several individuals who are facing eviction out of Franklin Park immediately. This money must be encumbered by June 30th if we choose to use it in this fiscal year. I believe that this is a very prudent use of funds for community members that need it immediately. Franklin Park is required to provide us a list of any residents facing eviction with at least 3 days' notice, and so we would literally have the names of people that Gila could reach out to assist them with this money. We could be actively preventing evictions in our community by choosing to allocate these funds this way. So my friendly amendment would be to raise it back up to the 30.
Spoke.
So I can look on the, it's what, 2,500 per resident, right, who is applying for the assistance. Do we have any track record of how many people were we able to keep firm once they get that one grant? Because really just would cover like 1 month's rent basically and a few other things, right? So do we have any records on how successful this is and how many people are in Greenbelt after receiving these grants? I think reducing it to 10,000 right now, really, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that, you know, it's just to receive some matching grants. I understand the gist, but I think that at this point, I wouldn't support that. I would support the one-time 30,000, right? But also and also mentioning the fact that I don't know how many millions we provided. I just want the public to know that we also provided a lot of ARPA funds towards this program, and I think it was several $1 million. So I just don't want anybody to think, well, we didn't, you know, we're just shutting this down, or we're not giving any monies towards eviction. But so of course I would support it, but I also understand maybe the matching grant, if we can, you know, maybe in the future look at something like that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I guess so. I think the 30,000 seems reasonable, because I guess the one question with that is we're allocating out of fiscal 25. If it goes into this fund, we still can spend it in fiscal 26, correct?
Yes, ideally, it's a 25 expenditure. We're gonna book it as a 20, we're gonna encumber the money as a 25 encumbrance because we make the direct payments.
Mhm.
So we will be drawing down from that open purchase order. So you're from an accounting basis, this money is being encumbered this year.
And then even though we might not get all of it spent, but between now and June 30th.
Correct, but the encumbrance is key because we may get applications in June that might not get paid out until July.
And I think there's clearly, I think if anything, that the need is going to go up, and it's very small compared to what we were able to do with ARPA money, but I would prefer to go with the original 30,000. So I'm going to vote against this and then propose that Ms. McKinney remove her original amount.
I'm not saying anything anymore about budget because I seem to be the only one that's trying to like save or just reduce our spending at some point. Because I see some problems ahead.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All in yes, please.
You have the motion, you have a friendly amendment, that needs to be accepted or rejected.
I reject.
And then you got the original motion, which is a $10,000 as a challenge grant. And for clarification, by challenge, you mean a one-to-one match.
That's correct.
So they have to raise $10,000 to be able to get the $10,000.
However much they're able to raise, they would get.
Well, a challenge grant. So if they raise $1, they get $10,000.
You say matching, they have to match the $10,000, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It's apparent that this is going to be voted down. So I'll withdraw my motion. If your second, Ms. Pope, you'd like to remove that?
I'll remove it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to get clarification on what the motion was.
All right, so I move to authorize the city manager to allocate up to $30,000 in grants in FY25 budget towards community organizations that provide rental assistance to Greenbelt residents.
Second.
Okay, so is that a designation for the emergency relief fund, or it sounds broader than that?
That is for the emergency relief fund.
As you said, Greenbelt organizations that provide.
I'm sorry,
rental assistance.
I was reading the first part of it, but yes, this is specifically for the Greenbelt Emergency Assistance Fund.
Second.
I think Amy already seconded. Yeah.
Somebody did. Okay. I couldn't hear you.
So are we clear on that it's for the emergency assistance fund?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Mr. Roberts, please go ahead.
I was just wondering, is that money going to come out of the general fund, or where is it coming from?
This general fund is coming out of the council's grants and contributions funding.
From this current year that will end in 3 weeks. It's not next year's budget.
There's 36,500 in the miscellaneous line item.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Let's move on to number 17. Authorize the city manager to allocate up to $6,000 in grant funds in FY25 for a workforce development program that focuses on food safety training for residents. Councilmember McKinney.
Thank you. So this second allocation request is around trying to stimulate additional usage in our community center. So in order to be able to use and prepare food in the community center, you actually have to have gone through some food safety program. So I know that there are starting to be requests for people who want to utilize that community center kitchen. And so that this would be an opportunity for them to get trained by a resident in our actual community center so that they can prepare food additionally for the community. Additionally, this also came up as part of the fact that we are looking to try to keep any of the produce, fresh produce that's coming from the Greenbelt Farmers Market. when we collect leftover produce from the farmer's market, if we want to distribute it out to the community, we also need to have food safety programs in place because we cannot be handling food if we do not have trained individuals actually trained enough to be able to distribute that. So if we want to be able to safely distribute or redistribute any of the leftover produce coming from the farmer's market, we want to make sure that we're handling that safely. So this training would serve dual purpose in being able to help people get trained in another area. So that's where the workforce development piece is in order to be able to utilize our kitchen and also potentially generate more food as well as more business coming in through our community center. And then also to make sure that we are being safe for our residents when we distribute food in the community. So the allocation of $6,000 would pay for potentially 2 rounds of training workshops for up to, I think it was 20 residents, 20 residents to go through this training program and to be food safety certified.
Is that a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to, let me just get my language correct. All right. I would like to make the motion for the city manager, to authorize the city manager to allocate up to $6,000 in grant funds in the FY25 budget for workforce development program that focuses on food safety training for residents.
Second.
Councilmember Pompey.
I think that my question was just answered, but I just wanted to confirm that this will be just to train Greenbelt residents, correct? You have to be a resident of Greenbelt. Okay, that's great. Thanks. That's it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Do you have plans about how would people apply? Have you started to think about that? Because again, I guess if this is fiscal year 25 money, does it need to be?
We're gonna encumber it, same sort of situation. Yeah, because obviously we would not be able to get the training programs in between now and June 30th, but we wanted to set aside the time so that we can adequately publicize for this program and make sure that people are applying to get through that.
Yeah, let me know. I'll be doing that.
Okay.
I would love to do that, yes. I think that's a great program. Great idea.
Let me just say this. I think it's a great program. I think that it has merit. I'm not comfortable with the way that this has been put forward. I think for these small grants, Mayor Pro Tem has pushed consistently that we have a process set up for making these kinds of allocations. So the way that this is presented in a paragraph, I suppose the city would be running it, or would it be a grant to a council member, or how the grant would be coming back to, would the city be running this, or would you be running this, or?
Running this would be going through our community center. So we would be paying for go ahead.
If I might, Jim, I think once the council approves this, you're directing the city manager to handle it from that point. So we would identify the vendor and we will work with a program schedule and a recruitment process that meets the city's standards.
Thank you. So, I just have some qualms about tonight, making these the proposals, which are good proposals, a great program. So I just think that in the future, if we set aside a time during the budget process or some other time during the year when we can all put forward ideas, when this fund was set up, it was more to respond to emergency requests. Last year, we were able to respond to Grace, their request for migrant assistance. Prior to that, I think we used it to fill in a gap with the Boys and Girls Club. Things come up every year, but usually it's in response to an external request as opposed to a council member putting forward an idea at the 11th hour.
I see this as an emergency request. We have people that are getting evicted, and they are coming to various council members asking for assistance. I'm just putting it forward to try to see a mechanism for doing that. That was in the first one. And then in the second one, when it comes to food safety, this also is something that we are trying to make sure we are being safe and distributing the food in the correct way. And God forbid there's something handling food improperly, we don't want to have that liability. So I also see that as an emergency request because we are starting to look at ways to to distribute our food, especially since there are food insecurities happening, given again what's happening in our community right now. So I see them as emergency.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And I would also say that there weren't requests that came in for this money throughout the previous 11 months, and now we're in the last month. So this would be the time we had that no prior emergencies or requests came up, so the money is still available to use for what are pretty important needs right now. So, yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that if we want to make sure in future years we have a set time, so we don't wait till the 11th hour, 3 weeks before the budget is over. So if we can look at a certain period of time to look to see what is remaining in that, I think that is perfectly doable. But we're at a point now where we need to encumber that money.
Ms. Pope.
Yeah, but I think we do have to have some kind of process of how we should handle that and not the last minute things, because that does not give you a lot of options really, not a lot of thought to put into something. Now, I really did like this, but some of the other things, I don't know, I think we should know ahead of time how much is left, and then we can maybe council can sit together and say, okay, what would we like to do? What would you like to, kind of come to consensus on how we spend that money? Because this seemed to be tonight a little bit contentious at times, and I think that's unnecessary, and I think we can work on that better. Because we all have our ideas, we all want to maybe do something, right? So.
Please go ahead.
I completely agree with you. I think that one of the reasons that it feels a little contentious is because we're kind of down to the wire. This is one of the last meetings before this budget season, or maybe the last meeting before this budget season closes. And so I would like to make sure that we're spending this money in ways that can really help our citizens. And since we haven't gotten those applications in throughout the year, and I think this is the first year where council, I don't know, it's I think my first year that I've ever even had a thought about this pot of money. So I agree that having a process in place in the future is a great idea, and that it's not ideal that it waited until the last minute. But I'm really glad that we have some super solid ways to spend this money, whether or not it's at the last
Yeah,
minute.
no, of course, it's all good spending, it's not wasted money. I mean, it's not, it all goes to good causes and good programs, et cetera, that's fine. But, sometimes I think that I think we could have done that a little bit more cohesively on our part. That's just my comment.
Just one final thing. We got a budget. We have funding allocated for a lot of different things. We don't have to spend it. If the city manager actually looked at everything that we had in last year's budget and spent all that money, we would have that $4 or $5 million deficit or more. So, a budget's a map. You have money set aside for different things, but you don't have to spend it down. When you don't spend it down, it rolls over. So let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. So that's going to bring us to item number 18, council activities.
Well, it's a short list because hasn't even been a week since we were last here. And I was out of town, so I have very little on the list, but there's what we've got.
Memorial Day was the last gig, right?
Yeah. Well, and that was even counted in the last meeting because we had the meeting on Tuesday.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
there we go. A few things. Mayor Jordan got around in the last week.
Really did.
Well, you got to keep busy. So, cookies on the bridge, the students were there. They were looking for the cookies. So hopefully we can find a way to continue to do that next year.
Sorry, I wasn't able to help you.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was nice to see the reopened animal shelter as well. That was great.
Yes.
So I was at the Roosevelt graduation on Wednesday because my son graduated, and it was pouring down rain, if you remember, on Saturday. So when we're leaving, it's raining and all the students are leaving, but you may or may not know that Roosevelt has a really incredible step team, and all the seniors on the step team, there was maybe 10 of them, they did this great step performance in the pouring rain in their caps and gowns. It was very cool, splashing in the puddles of the parking lot. So it was pretty great. And I always say, if you have a chance to see the Roosevelt Step team, I mean, these guys are like,
We've seen them. Weren't they
so
here
great.
before and the whole room was shaking?
Here again,
The whole,
because
the whole
it's so
building was
fun.
shaking when they were here.
yeah,
It's
they're
really
very
good.
fun.
Yeah,
So
very
anyway,
good.
it was just really great. So, congrats to all of our seniors who are now graduated and moving on to their next thing.
Okay, any council reports? Okay, well, hearing none, can I please have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.